All right. Testing, testing. You guys talk real quick. Make sure I get the correct audio set.
Hello?
Okay,
Hello.
perfect, perfect.
Can you hear me?
Coming in the head.
All
I know we're streaming. DMCA.
right. I need to fill up my drink, and then we can go. Retweets
Why do you always take us live
appreciated.
before you do things like that?
I probably should have done it like right before.
I'm just curious. There's a reason.
No, I'm just dumb. I'll I'll keep that in mind for next week. All right, be right back.
Yep, what are your Halloween plans?
None. I'm trying to get the Gil to watch Halloween Town with me.
I'm gonna see Yip out trick-or-treating in a costume. I did meetings, so all of my clinics, I had meetings with all of my clinics today, and they're at a clinic with a bunch of kids, right? So everybody was dressed up. And like, I get on, and I'm like, oh, they're like, you're not dressed up? And it was like, "I'm literally in my house. Nope, not gonna happen." But yeah, it's great. They do
I
like a
just wanna.
spirit week, like the
I
whole
saw a
week.
great. Sorry, go on. Tell me about Spirit Week.
No, I was just saying they do like a spirit week the whole week. And so like the last day is costumes. But yesterday was pajama day.
Oh dang.
And one of like the CMs wore like this onesie like skeleton costume and then forgot that she had a doctor's appointment at lunch. And so
Heck
she had to
yeah.
go to the doctor in a onesie skeleton costume.
And that
Ouch.
was on Thursday, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, there's no
I feel
excuse,
like
right?
Friday. Yeah, if it's Friday, it's like, oh yeah, you're having fun before Halloween.
Right.
Thursday's like,
What are you doing?
yeah, like, yeah. There's another day left in this week.
Yeah, it was great.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, we ready to get this show on the road?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but Yip was gonna tell
Did
me a
you tell
story.
did you tell the group or
Gone.
the guild?
God.
Yeah, I'm about to post it.
Yeah, it was some story about Spirit Week.
No, that
That was my
that's
story.
Mel's story.
Yeah, but it reminded you of something, and you're like, "Oh, go on, go on."
No, I think I was going somewhere entirely else. That's why I had to stop myself. I was like, this is gonna be so rude for me to just say some other thing right now.
All right.
Ugh.
Okay.
All right.
This is just for me. Welcome to episode 69 of Warcraft Reloaded, a podcast brought to you by Mash Those Buttons, covering World of Warcraft Classic and its community. I am Bobby, also known as BlazzinBob, and today we're joined by Ryan, aka CognitivePit, also known as Yip. How you doing?
Hello, I'm doing fantastic. Bobbert, how are you doing?
Doing good, Bobbert. Wow, I haven't heard that one in forever. I actually had a guy named Blazin Bobbert back in the day.
Oh, nice.
It was something
You
I was
would.
called quite a bit in grade school, Bobbert. Oh, we're also joined by Mel, aka Melarina. How you doing?
Hi, I'm good. Did you guys miss me last week? Were you guys so sad?
We did.
Yeah, I know Bob cried all night because he was just so sad that I wasn't there. And Yip did too, obviously.
Yeah, you got me.
I know.
I wanted to.
know.
I
I
wanted to
saw.
not. I wanted to not be there so I could get more secrets from Kim. I was like, Bob, eke those secrets out. How can we all be rich like him?
Right?
I
Like, what do
know.
we have to
You know,
do?
there's definitely some things like when we were asking him questions, he's like,
Yeah, he's like, let
he's
me
like,
think about
yeah,
how I'm gonna.
which secrets do I want to divulge and which ones do I want to
Yep.
keep to myself? What can I say?
You guys,
Yeah,
I
there are
feel
some
like
specifics.
every time I donate to the guild bank, it like eats a little bit of like my insides. But I feel bad because I use the guild bank all the time, right? So like I'll put stuff in there and I'm like, Kim, do you want me to put this in here? And he's like, yeah, that'd be great. And I'm like, okay. And I just like watch like gold leaving my inventory and I'm like, but I don't have to buy consumes. So it's okay, Mel. You can put it in there.
It's like a warlock draining your soul the whole time, just draining your
Yeah.
soul shards from you.
I'm also curious. I donate still pretty frequently, like 50, 100 gold here and there. I'm curious at how many people. I haven't looked at the log to see how many people do that, but
I think it's
yeah.
more stuff oriented nowadays. I think people will go to a dungeon and they'll like donate their prismatics or something. Like I think that sort of thing is where that's what I do. If I go out and there's stuff in my warrior's inventory, that's going right in the G bang.
There you go.
Yeah, for me, if it's just been a good week, I just give like a portion. It's kind of like taxes in the way that I think about it, but that's just how I do it. I'm sure everybody has their own little way, but
I think of it like it's less than I would have to spend on consumes each week if we didn't have a good guild bank. And so that's how I'm like
You're still
really
winning.
feel good about it.
oh, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I'm paying far less than I would be if I was using all the
Yeah.
consumes that I'm using. So it's
Well,
a
and we
good
know
deal.
everybody's using consumes, right? Like there's literally no excuse not to use consumes now.
Yeah.
So the longer we can keep that going, I think that's why we've had a lot of success.
Yeah, it's been super healthy for the morale of the guild. You don't have people complaining about progression wipes and like, oh, okay, I've already spent 400 gold. You know those guys that are always in the guild that'll just complain about consumes constantly. So we don't have to
And you
deal with
don't
that.
have a weak link either where you die and you're down 400 gold, but that guy's lost 0 gold because
Right.
he's not popping scrolls or elixirs.
Yep,
And
Right.
yep. So
I
it's
will
just a
say
good
though,
thing.
like spirit elixirs have gone like way up. And I think it's because there's not a lot of priests in raids that are like have improved divine spirit. And so spirit, did I say elixirs? I meant scrolls.
okay, scrolls. Okay.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was
yeah.
gonna say, I was like, spirit elixirs. I've got questions about this. Because
No.
I'm pretty
I
sure
was really gonna be like, you can still use Zanzas, right? They've got 25 spirit on them.
I'm
They're a
pretty
guardian
sure
elixir.
you did say elixirs, but my brain just plugged in scrolls. I probably should have said something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
I
meant
was waiting
scrolls.
to hear. I was like, I don't know every elixir in the game, I guess. I don't know. I'm not the alchemist.
Nope,
But
nope.
hey, you do for anyone who doesn't know though, Zanzas are still rule and are they're one of the highest statted items, elixirs in the game. It's a guardian elixir with 25 stam, 25 spirit on them.
Oh, that's a good call. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
And
think it's
that's
better
2
than a
hours.
healing elixir though.
When you're getting one shot, maybe it
That's fair. That's fair.
All right. Well, let's get into the show. So this week we're gonna go over reviews. We're gonna go over some of the emails we've gotten, and we still aren't through them all because we're just not going to be able to read a ton every week. But we will try and make sure and keep them in the order they were received, unless something's very time sensitive. And then we're going to go over what we've been doing lately in WoW. Then we're going to hit our raid progress, which, spoiler alert, was pretty awesome for the most part. And then we're going to go over the news. I'm going to start doing the news, TBC news first, classic fresh news afterwards. So anybody who tunes into the show that's just interested in one or the other, you'll be able to see the timestamps, and it'll be just a straight progression through each of those sets of news to kind of help out the different listeners that are only interested in one of the things. Then at the end of the show, we're going to play a pre-recorded recording of friend of the show, Naismith, came on and gave me, Yip, and our guild leader, Harskar, some tips on KT that, helped us on our initial try of KT last night. So we're going to play that at the very end, and then that'll be the show. So with that being said, let's get into it. We had a couple new reviews.
Yeah, the first review was on a podcast, great weekly TBC Classic podcast 5 out of 5-star classic WoW podcast. I've converted at least 5 of my guildies to weekly listeners. We
Whoop, whoop.
love laughing and discussing your weekly adventures. I especially enjoy the raid progression updates and funny wipes slash Mel dying too much. My guild has had its fair share of blooper deaths and T5 content, and I know the community appreciates sharing in the misery and shenanigans together. Keep up the good work. For the Horde, Bloodlust Not Heroism. The Thunder from Down Under Huron on Fairbanks. Shout out to my guildies in Insomnia, the best late night professionals on the server.
Nice.
I especially want to say, I can't even get Alliance to call heroism heroism. Even Alliance call heroism bloodlust, and it aggravates me so much. Bob says, shouldn't we be bloodlusting?
I don't
And
even say
Hearthscare,
bloodlust. I
no,
say
just
lust.
lust, yeah. Everyone just says lust, and it drives me up a wall. Get out of here with this lust nonsense. It's like
It's just that's
it,
what it was in Warcraft 3, man. So
it's
it's
like
hard.
some sort of oh,
It's
come
like
on, that's
we
not.
are
No one's calling
heroes.
it lust because of Warcraft 3. You're all calling it lust because you're Horde apologists. You played Horde during retail at some point. That's the real answer.
We've
All of
lived
you are
both
just
sides.
you're just dog whistling to your Horde friends, like, yeah, we're gonna lust, guys. We don't
Well,
heroism in this guild.
lust is easier to say. You could say hero, but
Yeah, you
then
just say hero.
but then
Like
every time
every
they did
alliance
that,
play.
I would break out into song. I need a hero, and
Yeah,
it would
see,
just ruin
that's
the
an
raid.
individual problem, though. That is
Yeah,
not, a
ridiculous.
universal
Listen,
problem.
we have a server mute button. That's not a problem. Let's
something
we can hero.
something that I want to pull out of this podcast, and I think it's great. Like telling
Out of this
your
podcast?
or out of this review. I think it's great because the biggest way to grow the show is to tell your friends, and I think it's hilarious that they actually like we're like a freaking sitcom to them. They're like, "Oh, did you hear what Bob did? Oh, did you hear what Mel did?" Like, it's kind of neat that they that they have fun with us on a weekly basis, and I just had
Glad
never
you
thought about that.
I'm glad you read it as sitcom. I was getting more freak show vibes. I love
I am
seeing you
glad you
guys
enjoy
die.
me dying.
Yeah, Mel's like, yeah, just
But
like normal entertainment, seeing me die again and again.
It's
can I give
funny
a
because it's
spoiler
true.
here? Because
Yeah, you
spoiler
can do it.
alert, Mel did not die at all on SSC until Vash.
It's true.
Can we get a high five here? Like, I
That's
feel
a
like I
that's a
need a lot of
huge
praise for
spoiler.
this.
We've got all that other content on farm anyway. It's an anti-spoiler of like, hey, we're not garbage.
Okay, but the last time I was on, I'm pretty sure I died 18 times or something insanely crazy like that. And I would just like to say that Bushy and I last night tied for deaths.
Nice.
So we were in a tie, which
Well,
has
and
never happened before.
you weren't getting the soul stones on progression, so that probably helped.
Fair. Yeah, that's the only reason I die.
Well, just saying, instead of 2 deaths, you just had 1.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's great. Bushy
Oh.
tried to tell me that he was going to battle res me just to increase my deaths because we
You
were too
are
close.
allowed to live after you take a soul stone,
What?
Implying that taking a soul stone is like a guaranteed additional death.
No, it's
It's
just
like-
when I die during a fight and I have a soul stone, I usually have to take my soul stone and then I potentially die again. So it
Now,
gives me 2 opportunities to die.
now you got me scared. I hope nobody's down raking soulstone.
Wait, what? That's a thing?
Yeah, because you could use just like a down raked res. You could use a soulstone that reses somebody with like no health or mana.
Well, when we talk about raid, I'll explain why that very well may be the case. As far as our raid warlocks go.
Not me. But yeah, let's go on to the next review.
Yeah, so the next review, thank you, Huron, for that first one. The next one is from Shade ZW. Best TBC podcast, period. Simply the best TBC Classic podcast there is. Hosts are knowledgeable and funny. If you're a WoW fan, don't miss this podcast. You heard it. You heard it
Aw.
here. If you're listening to this, I hope you're not missing the podcast.
Yeah, right.
Please
Yeah.
don't shut it off yet.
I think knowledgeable is a good word for us. Not expert, knowledgeable.
I think occasionally knowledgeable
Yeah.
Fair.
is
We
fine.
have our moments.
Yeah. We're upfront when we're not.
Yeah. We
That's
at least let you
that's a
know.
big thing. But those were the two reviews for the week. We have a couple emails as well too. But thank you so much for the reviews. They help us out a ton, and we always appreciate them. Now to move on to a couple emails that we received. The first one is from a fellow player on White Mane. Sup, gang? This is my second review, although it is more of a request. The first review was on Apple Podcasts, and since I can't review twice, I'm now emailing you. First of all, I had been through a busy time at work, so much so that I almost quit WoW, but your podcast kept my interest afloat. Now I am back full throttle, so thank you for the great work on the pod. Secondly, I have a level 70 warlock, and I've always been a lock. A lock is who I am. But now I have a 70 pally tank, and being an off tank is my new passion. See the quick turnaround. I don't get the responsibilities that main tanks get, but I do get to be in all the action, and it's so much fun. Big shout out to all the off tanks. Thirdly, this is my request. The WoW servers are currently down, I think. I'm unable to log on, so I did the next best thing. I YouTubed the lore of the Burning Crusade, and wow, is there a mountain of lore. It is so interesting. My request is if you guys can have a special episode, maybe a Christmas special or something, but please tell us the story of WoW, the Burning Crusade. I feel like you guys would do an excellent job understanding how all the raid bosses are connected, and even Lich King being a thing right now, and how the Draenei escaped to Zangarmarsh for refuge, and even how Mag is captured underneath ramparts in order to give the orcs that we fight in Shattered Hall all that power. It's fascinating. Please consider it. Thanks, Ozzy Hendrix / Ozzy Moon, for the Horde, White Mane. P.S. Yep, thanks for waving back that one time I ran into you in Shatrath, even though I had to wave to you 7 times before you waved back. PSSSSSS. Steel Wolf is my favorite. Wow. His voice reminds me of Jason Mantzoukas, who's like that crazy guy. I don't know if you guys watch like Brooklyn Nine-Nine or anything. This guy's like this guy always plays this like manic character. He's got like a big beard and wild hair. I kind of but he's just like, "What's up, guys?" Like, he's got this like
Oh my
crazy.
God.
And No Hit Jerome was a great guest. He had so much to the convo and is very quick / funny. Sorry for the long message. Don't you worry about your long message. What's funny is, and Bob and I have the same feeling. But whenever any horde starts emoting at us, there's like this weird like decision of like, I don't want to assume, but does this person know me? is this person emoting at me because of the podcast, or is this someone that I've murdered a lot? Is this someone that I just faced in arena and they're like BMing me and I didn't realize? Like, there's so many options
Yeah, it's
whenever
Maybe
it's happened.
why?
it's definitely bizarre because I played the game for years and didn't do a podcast, and now even in like Altric Valley with Alliance, like all of a sudden I'm getting one person clapping at me and bowing over and over again. I'm just like, is that a listener?
You
The
guys
same
want to
with
know my
Horde.
experience with this? Is I had somebody message me yesterday and say, "Hey," and I was like, "I don't know who this is." I was like, "Hi," and then he asked me if he could buy my Mooncloth cooldown.
Oh, I thought I had a fan.
That's good. The other thing as well, I remember you, Ozzy Hendrix / Ozzy Moon. I can't remember which one you were on, and I've seen you around. We have a warlock in our guild named Ozzy, and I've seen you, and when you waved at me, I remember being like, is this our Ozzy? Does he just have a horde character on another account on this server?" Because it's very coincidental in all the waving, but looks like that's not the case.
Yeah,
Mm.
like Ozzy
Or it
Jules is a
is
pretty big part of
Ozzy.
the guild too.
Maybe Ozzy undercover,
Um,
right?
Yeah, right.
But
un-
I will also say how frequent. Okay, because I don't think I would even notice if anybody waved to me. Like, do you guys have that in like a separate
You
area
and
or
Bob are
something?
boomers who
I've
don't
got
look
it.
at your chat.
Well,
Yeah, I
I've got
don't.
it in like I've got one chat that has guild, raid, party. Then I have one
Same.
chat that's just tells. Then I have one chat that is everything else, and then I switch over to combat log when I need to see what happened. But
Okay, Bob
it's just
does not
one
look
chat.
at guild,
Dude,
raid chat, or party chat.
you just need to like watch the VODs back because Bob's been summoning when asked in raid and not even in
Last
voice.
week we were yelling about summons.
It's hit and miss, but like I'm reading it at least half the time now. Yeah,
You are doing it more. I will admit. There was a time like in Nax, it was like 100% chance Bob was not reading whatever got written
never.
in,
Yeah,
in
never.
guild or raid. You definitely have gotten better, but I think that is
Last thing on this email is I think that's a neat idea for a pod, and we actually have a show on the Mash Those Buttons network called Torn and the Goblin that just focuses on WoW lore. So, and they do it across everything, and they jump back and forth like throughout. But maybe I'll reach out to one of them to maybe jump on for some sort of holiday special where, and I know Yip knows the lore pretty good too, so they could kind of go back and forth, tell the story. That'd be pretty neat. So we definitely will put that into consideration, and thank you for the idea.
Yeah, you can very quickly find out that we're the villains of the story. Illidan is just chilling out and in a whole other planet, and we go to him. All right, that ain't right. That's his house.
Yeah, it'll be neat for me just because I don't know the story, so I'll be able to ask questions and be like, "What? Are you serious?" So it'd be cool.
It's cool. I love WoW lore. WoW lore is like something that has always kept me interested in the game. I think it's just something that's like deep and rich, and it's kind of hard to keep up with retail now, but 'cause there's like retcons and stuff like that. But for classic lore, simple, and I get it still. But thank you so much for your email. And we have one other. Hello. Oh, this is called the subject is WoW Classic Fresh. Hello. I hope all is well and you are all staying healthy. I'm a huge fan of the pod and have a quick opinion on the whole Classic Fresh thing. I know you guys have talked about the seasons have to be longer because of how much content there is in WoW. I had a thought on how Blizzard could get around this whole world buffs and other changes. What if each phase of Classic was a new season? So for season 1 with Molten Core and such, you could keep the changes like no world buffs and other things, but at the end of each phase, you could switch up the rules a bit. It keeps the game interesting every couple of months and rocks the community a bit each time. Maybe by phase 6 with Nax, you bring back world buffs to compensate for the raid difficulty, but you change up something else to keep us on our toes. Would you be interested or would be interested in your takes on this idea and if there are holes that I am not seeing? Anyways, sorry for the length of the email, but hope this is interesting enough for the next episode. For the Alliance! Trophies, human priest.
Was that for somebody who wanted that as a sound clip?
No, I feel like I got to do a better one for the sound clip.
Well,
Someone did want one as
just to let you know, someone did tweet out and ask for that. So I went ahead and at mash.gg/discord, I put my sound clip that I made of him a while back to throw in at different times if I wanted to. But he does it enough, so I haven't had to do that, but I got it, gave it to the guild. So I went ahead and pinned that in the Warcraft Reloaded chat in mash.gg/discord. If anybody wants that because this guy wants it as his text message alert, which I thought was hilarious.
This is amazing.
I just imagine myself in a grocery store and hearing, "For the Alliance!"
I have a couple of takes on this guy's idea.
Let's hear it.
The first is I have a problem with them switching what the mastery is between patches because I believe that a game requires a social contract in order to be fun. And in order for a game to be fun, you need to know the rules. And if you don't know the rules, then next patch or the next like when BWL comes out and all the you have to play the game upside down with reverso controls, you're not gonna be super happy. They're gonna beta test anything like this no matter what. So each phase is gonna be like figured out and solved for the most part anyway. By the time it comes out, it's just gonna be kind of weird. I like the idea though I'm going to counter it with a couple ideas, then you guys can talk about your ideas too. So my first one is I like the idea of them not telling us how they're making content harder. So right now they're forcing us to beta test because they can't internally do that. Of course, games can't be internally tested any longer. Um, but what I would like to see is like BWL comes out and you don't know how hard it's going to be. You don't know how much health exactly they're going to have. You don't know what abilities they might end up like improving or something like that. Or you don't know how much damage they're going to do. I think having some element of like progression involved keeps it interesting. Um, so I sort of like the base idea. I wouldn't want it to be too wacky between patches, but just going into the unknown, I think is something that keeps the game interesting. Um, Someone in our guild actually had an idea that sort of like mythic keys on retail, you could have raids. A season could specifically be like this, where every week the raid could have different affixes on bosses. So like mythic plus keys, it'll be like, oh, there's more ads on bosses, or this one can just do a living bomb now. Was his suggestion, but there'd be like a list of set affixes that rotate every week, and then that way you wouldn't have that speed run meta where it's like, how fast can someone do the same content over and over again?
Right.
But every week, you don't know if you could clear that content, and you'd be competing on a weekly basis, like who can get this raid down, who can get this raid down good enough. And I thought that was really cool and interesting. So I definitely think that you're onto something where changing what's going on and keeping it fresh, I think, is really important. But a part of that has to do with
Yeah.
just the beta testing process. The fact that we're testing all the content so thoroughly before it comes out, I think that is it just spells a problem, because people will theory craft. All the great players will theory craft, and then it'll just be trickled down all over again, the same way that we all became warriors after private servers found out they're amazing.
Yeah.
Right. I think there's that, like, that level of, you can make changes every phase, but then different things are good, right? So you spent a bunch of time working up a warrior, and then maybe they do something phase two, and now you have to work up another character, right? It just doesn't feel rewarding to me.
Man, melee sucks now in this phase.
Yeah. Right. And I think we also have to think about something that you said, yeah, that kind of made me think is like, I feel like anybody says something like, this is what they do in retail, it's like everybody in the classic community, not everybody, but like a portion of people in the classic community shut down. They're like, we don't want
Ah,
retail,
Yep.
right? Like,
no.
that's a retail thing. We don't want that, right? But I do think that there are good things in retail that, if you put them into the classic community, I think that they would enjoy them. But knowing that they come from retail, I feel like makes them much more like
Even
Well,
controversial.
I was just
even
making fun of Bob.
subconsciously.
I was just making fun of Bob the other night, being like, "You're solely suggesting retail changes," and he's like, "Well, it's not that I don't like something because it's retail. I just don't like retail, and there's reasons why I don't like it." And I think that
Right.
that's how people need to start like approaching these things. Like, there are things you can take from retail that are good. There's a reason why these
Yeah.
changes happened. Like, they were trying to solve problems with these changes, and like, so it does make sense that. But yeah, classic players, it's like retail. They put
It's
their
like,
hands over their
yeah.
ears.
Yeah, and even subconsciously they will do it. And especially, you know, I was actually I'm still pretty ignorant on like retail as a whole because I haven't played in so long, but with this podcast I've had a lot of different emails, interactions with people, comments on YouTube, yada yada yada, that have told me that, hey, what you said on the pod was wrong. Like, this is how it works. And I'm like, oh, well, I didn't really know that. I only knew what, friends and different things had told me, but this podcast has opened my eyes to a whole lot more information than I had prior, and it's neat. But I still am not going to retail, and there's many different big reasons that it just can't happen. I mean, one of the biggest ones is it's just like bloated. I mean, it's bloated as hell, and I just don't want to do that. Like, it'll make my brain go crazy. But there are definitely things in retail that can be looked at. Like, I don't understand why anybody wouldn't want rated BGs. I mean, as a warrior who's been doing arena and doesn't want to go find the perfect, arena partner like wants to play with friends, rated BGs would be amazing for me because I'd be so good in a rated BG team as a warrior. And so there's different things that I think you could definitely pull, and I don't inherently hate anything just because it's retail.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's a good suggestion. I'd personally be worried about it.
Oh yeah,
From a
I did want to say also on this. So I don't know about changing like Molten Core week by week, but we're gonna get into the news, and I believe what you're asking for is going to be happening throughout this Classic Fresh. They're doing things to Molten Core and to Onyxia. And I believe that as soon as, it launches, they're going to be starting to work on BWL, and you'll hear that in the news. There's some interesting things coming. It's no longer, it's hashtag quite a few tages. So we'll get to that when we get to the news, though. All right, guys. What we're going to skip the next email. We'll get it next week. It's kind of long, and we want to go ahead and tell your story. So we're going to wait till next week. What have you guys been doing lately in WoW?
Optimizing myself for sick parses. That's what I've been doing. I made myself a dragon maw. That was
Nice.
interesting. I had to pug
Wait,
a
what
lot of
is a dragon
heroics.
maw?
It is the second tier blacksmithing hammer that is not Storm Herald. It's like the one-handed DPS one.
And the one that
Um,
all the supposed prot tanks are parsing with when they dual wield, right?
Well, it's just a DPS weapon. That's why they're using it. It's just a really good DPS weapon. So that's what they're doing to do more DPS. So I was like, well, I'm gonna go for sick parses. I parse pretty well in the normal, just like safety route. But I decided, forget safety. I'm the main tank. I need to be more unreasonable and make more demands. So that's how I spent my time. I was
Live
just
up
getting
to
gear.
Tank Diva.
Yeah. And heroics were interesting because it led me to an interesting conclusion that our server is dead. Or maybe the game's dead. I don't want to be this guy, but I couldn't even find heroics to tank some days. It was absolutely abysmal how many people were trying to do heroics. It was zero. It's like one guy looking for everybody. Or if they're doing a heroic, it's just slave pens because of how
Our
easy it is and you can skip.
our
So trying to get like
server
6 heroics done in a day is nuts.
Yeah, our server for Alliance is getting a little scary at this
It's
point.
not that small though. That's what's so crazy. If you look at the population numbers, it's still a huge amount of players. I just think they're not coming on to do heroics. Like people just aren't playing the game with each other. And I understand that because why do a heroic with a pug when you can do it with your guild, right? If you have a guild that you're
Well, and
with.
Yeah.
okay, so the badge gear, people might not realize, but new badge gear does come in with phase 3 with Mount Hyjal and Black Temple, but most likely the Karazhan badge change comes in then too. So why spend this time getting 3 badges per heroic when you have to pug it when your guild is probably going to run quite a few Karazhans, and you're going to get what, 14 badges or something like that
And
per?
everyone already has a lot of badges if they're not playing alts. Like I was playing with a
Yeah.
healer who had 1,200 badges. He said extra. He just like kept doing heroics.
1,200?
Yeah, I mean, if you've been doing heroics every day, there's
I
there's
haven't.
just no, and those are the only people I could find doing heroics. The other cool conclusion that I came to though was kind of sick in heroics now. It's kind of been a while since I pugged a bunch of them, but I was just straight carrying some of these noobs coming in here. They didn't know how to play their characters. They were pulling extra, but I just had a lockdown. Like I can live really well now. I'm like controlling all the mobs in there, and I'm just like, oh man, I'm a hard
You're like,
carry
I
now.
got this.
Beginning of the expansion, I was like, man, I wish I was a paladin. I hate my life. No one wants to run with a warrior, but finally, I feel like I've bridged that gap with tier 5 raid gear.
There you go.
Heroics are a breeze with pugs now.
Yeah, I kind of wish you would have messaged me because I could still use a few more badges for the just in case I have to get fire resist one week. Or not
I just
fire
play at odd
resist. Yeah,
times.
fire resist.
I just play at weird times. So like I'll do them out throughout the day, or like if I'll post in like Discord for 1 minute, but then it's like I don't want to wait, so I'll try to find a group immediately. Like
Well, if
Oh,
you
fair.
if you do any more, let me know. Like, just send me a DM because I can possibly hop on pretty quick.
sounds good. But I did make my dragon moth, so I'm all done. But that's what I've been doing.
Good
It's all
job.
been
Yep.
focused on my personal raid improvements.
Mhm.
Nice. And Mel, what have you been doing?
Well, I've been epically raid logging, and I did get on to do our Gruul Mag stuff on Wednesday. Very reluctantly got on, but Bob reminded me that I had said yes in the ready check that we did on Tuesday that I would go. I was like, oh, damn it. And so that's fine. I got on. And I
Well,
will
and I also
say,
said, we don't want to set a precedent. You and I don't need anything at all from Gruul and haven't for a while, but we don't want to set the precedent of not showing up when we don't need anything. We still want to show up for the guild,
correct, but I've really never needed hardly anything. Like
True.
since
That is very true.
Yeah,
I
Girl
mean, I got
Mag
a
is
necklace like
abysmal.
really quick, and yeah, I haven't really needed anything since. So no, don't make me feel bad about that because I've been going a long time. But I went, and I will say, I was just like, oh man, we wiped a couple times, and we were doing it with less people, and it was fine. Like I didn't mind, but I know people that were going to Kara after. I feel like that was like a very extended raid night potentially
Well,
for
there
them.
was a key player missing from that raid night.
You.
Yeah, I mean, nah, I don't think Yip would have made any difference. Let's be real. I'm just kidding. No, but other than that, I mean, I think I don't know. I've been crazy busy at work, so it's a lot of just I've kind of given up on PvP this season. I don't know. I don't have enough time to get better at my druid. So I feel like I just can't do that.
Yeah, you
That's how I
should
feel about
have.
my druid, to be honest. Like I've stopped playing my druid entirely because it's just
Yeah.
sort of like it's enough to focus on my warrior right now. I'm getting enough
Yeah.
out of it, and it's already enough time that and that my
Well,
druid I just can't.
and in retrospect, I didn't realize how easy. I thought it would be easier, but I didn't realize how easy it would be to pay for respecs at this point in TBC. Like, for instance, I just paid for Yips the other night so he could come and just do arena with us for one night
It's
before he
just
had to
these
respec back.
psychos try to do arena for 2 hours. Hey, spend 100 gold so you can arena for 2 hours on a team that isn't going to be our points gaining team.
Yeah, it would just, I mean,
Ugh.
just, just for a good time. But I didn't
It is
realize
fun.
that. And I wish I would have realized that earlier because I think Mel would have had a lot more fun. She would have been, she would have been able to respect to discipline. It would have been fairly similar to her play style. She wouldn't have had to learn. But at this point now, to get her decked out in like the PvP gear that her druid has is just not on the table. And it's a bummer because it's so hard and so long to do that grind.
Yeah.
Get weekly points now, and then just get half off season 2 gear at the end.
Yeah, but it's not
And it's
Yeah.
it's not
I
really
mean,
the arena gear that's the problem. It's the BG gear. It's the honor gear that's the
it's
problem.
not BG gear is not that important.
I think it's pretty important.
I mean, it
It's
is to
not.
an extent, right? Like, I feel like at this point, though, I've just realized like I don't have time to do two characters, learn like two completely different play styles, right? Like, I I thought I could, and I like wanted to, and I really liked the druid, but I realized very quickly that there's a lot to the druid,
It's one of the
and
hardest. It's one of the
the
hardest
druid's
healing classes
hard
to
in
play.
PvP.
A
And
lot of buttons to push.
yeah, it is a lot of buttons to push, okay? Don't make fun. But
No, I have a druid. It's like
No,
there
we're
are
being
games
dead
where I just
serious.
don't cyclone at all. I always like didn't cyclone at all, and I'm like, should I have? Like, I just don't even know. I'll end a game and be like, I don't even know. Like, I had so many options I'm not
Right.
sure. I don't know how to self-analyze because that's how bad I
Yeah.
am at druid.
Yeah, it's one of
Same.
the it's
Yeah.
probably agreed on by the community as the hardest PvP healing class to play, but the best too, but the hardest.
Yeah, it's like, but it has a high like floor, right? Like it has a really high ceiling. Like you can be unbelievable at the top, right? But you really suck at the bottom. Like
Yeah,
there's
that you can
no like
tell too. As a warrior, like I can go in and be like, that druid sucks. Like
yeah. Yeah,
I
which I
know who to
feel like
target. Oh,
was
yeah.
me, right? Like people were like, okay,
Okay,
yeah, I can kill that druid.
so I want you to tell the story about you. So we're gonna work up another character, like not like it's my rogue, and she's gonna work up. I'll let you tell her what she's making here when she tells her story. But Melissa had good amount of drinks. She was me too. We weren't really thinking clearly, and she went to make her character that she was gonna boost because she hasn't ever used the boost. So she went to make that character and tell him how that went because it went a lot longer
Oh
than we
God.
expected.
Okay, so first I was like, I want to make a shaman because the shaman sounds really cool. So I spend all this time like trying to figure out how to make a dry eye a character that I want to play, right? Because I don't know, there's just a lot of weird things, and I was like, okay, I'll spend time because hear me out. I got screwed in Sea of Thieves because I thought that there was only like 4 characters you could choose from. Now I'm this like really ugly pirate character, and that really annoys me. Um, so I spent time. I like tried to get a name, tried to do all this, and then tried to like make it like look how I wanted it to look. And then I realized, crap, I can't make a shaman because
You
you
can't boost
can't
a
boost a
shaman
shaman.
on Alliance side.
Yeah, that's fine. So then, Bob, what was my second one I tried to make that I couldn't make?
Dry Eye Hunter.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So I tried to make a dry night hunter because I'm like, okay, I don't like mage. I already have a priest and a druid. Like, I want to experience something. And I thought about a pet, and that's cute and cool. So I tried to make a dry night hunter. And you can't boost a dry night, apparently?
Correct.
Yeah, so it's not just
Okay.
shaman, it's Dry Eye as a whole, which I hadn't even really thought of. I thought it was just you couldn't boost a chamois, but it's Dry Eye period.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
So round 3, I now, like an hour and a half in, I'm like, I could have been
It was
doing
like
so many
45
other
minutes. It
things.
was like
You're like, can
45
I be a
minutes.
troll?
God. And so finally I make I think a night elf hunter. And at that point, like, I was just like, whatever. Like, I'll pick what I want and like go through this. And then I'm like, Bob, what do you think about this? Do you think these facial arts are good? And I'm just like, oh my God, I hate my life right
She's
now.
like, "Do you like this one or do you like this one more?" And I'm like, "They look the same."
Okay, that was more on the first and second try. The third try, I was pretty done. But I also knew like this is the one that's actually gonna work. So I shouldn't just like completely forget about my aesthetics, right?
You wouldn't have to
So,
worry too much if there's a barbershop in the game.
but there's not
What a
in
shame. What a shame.
this,
And so instead, Bob had to wait.
yes.
But yeah,
So
so
I did make a hunter, and I don't know why. I feel like the options, I felt like a hunter was a better, like a good choice.
I just can't wait to
Hunters rule.
see because everybody uses the BIS pets. Mel's going to use whatever pet she thinks is cutest, and I think that's going to be hilarious.
Wow.
It's
Well,
true.
Mel will
hopefully,
use the best pet and be pissed off about it because it's not the cute pet. Let's
I
be
hope you
real.
know that one of our best raiders does the same thing. Butters uses a cat
Oh,
because he likes how it looks.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I've just been kind of working the auction house a little bit. Been logging in, doing different things, trying to find gear on the rogue, but people just aren't selling the green gear like as much as they were before. I think it's just all going to enchanting mats, and so I've been just kind of trying to gear up, getting ready for that. Once he gets to full rest, I think we're just gonna try and like work these up here and there with full rest. So basically, just waiting for her character to catch up on rest, and then we'll start working on those. But besides that, just been raiding, and I've been doing a lot of still PvP. I've given up on trying to get a high ranking in arena because I'm just not the type of dude that's going to search out a team that's proper. I would rather play with Yip or Kim
Mel.
or Ozzy or Mel or Stoof or all the people that just aren't the right class for me. And so unless somebody reaches out to me, I did have one druid with like a 1900 team ask me to play, but I told him I'd do it next week, gave him my Discord. He never got back to me. So unless somebody approaches me, I'm just going to be fine with just having a good time in arena. And that's all that really matters. Oh,
Fair.
did you do your fives? You joined another fives team, didn't you? Yep.
We might do some Sunday. We'll see. I
Be
didn't join
interesting.
it. I just left our fives team
Well,
Rude.
we'll have to
in
see how that turns
anticipation.
out.
Did I
Yeah.
get kicked out of our fives team? I don't even know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably.
Weird.
Our five. Bob is like Bob is a true five psycho. It's like we're rotating like 17 people on like a daily different basis. Bob's like, okay, who can I kick? Who can I bring in? Who won't lose the percentage? Like, let's keep this person at 30%. Like, Bob's got to crunch the numbers like
Oh my
every time
god.
we go play to see who can play and who can't play. It's really funny to see,
I'm
but
just trying
he
to
gets
make
it
sure
together
nobody
for everyone.
gets left behind.
Everyone who needs points can get them with Bob, and it's a great service.
There you go.
All right. Well, let's get into raid because, one awesome Tuesday.
Okay,
Let's say that.
can I start this? Because I wasn't on last week. I cannot believe that you guys thought the first time we down Vash, Yip can just talk about that independently.
We
Like,
didn't have a choice.
well,
Yeah, I mean, we could. There was no time over the weekend we could have gotten on. We were indisposed the entire weekend.
yeah, but we
That's true
missed our
though.
whole like, woo!
Tell me, we couldn't just skip it. Well, tell us about your woo. Do you have any perspective to get from that fight?
No, not at all.
Great, then we'll
No,
I
I think it
uh
was. I mean, it was always like this chaotic, crazy mess. And I feel like when we killed Vash, not last week, but the week before, it was like, wow, we actually did it. Like there was minimal people up. Like we like got
yeah.
it by the hair of our chin, right? Like
well, the one thing I had to kind of pitch a bitch about is FJ got a shout out of his 99 parse, but me and Ozzy didn't get shout outs for our 97 parses.
I'll maintain I don't understand why you would ever think a 97 parse is worth a shout out.
Hey man,
We
hey
our
man,
first
we got to do what we can do.
listen, isn't it your generation that complains about millennials getting participation awards?
A
Do you want your
97 parse
participation
is
award?
not a
It
participation
is when
award.
someone else got a 99 parse, Bob.
Yeah, well, and what's
That's the
crazy is the
fair.
difference in damage that was 2% because he did 40k more damage than me. Like I did like 800k total. He did like 840, and it's nuts that like that little amount
Oh,
is
it's like
is so much
it's like
higher.
marginally more, yeah. Like you need less DPS increase to gain more and more, like the higher you get, and less people are like hardcore cheesing in the upper echelon. Like
Yeah.
so for like warrior, I feel like you get a lot more cheese parses where you're like, what? This person wasn't even tanking, and he got a tank parse. This is like ridiculous. So, but yeah, no, warlocks
Okay,
are
can I
very
talk about
good. They always
parses
do
for a
great.
second?
Oh God,
Yeah.
what?
I need to talk about parses because I have never really looked at parses because I don't really care as a healer. We've talked about this, but I did look at my parses for last week, right? And okay, Void Reaver is I got moved to raid healing, right? So I can circle of heal. I literally am circle of healing my butt off. Like the entire fight as long as I have mana and people are taking damage. And I don't understand how that gives me a 68% purse. Like, what?
I will explain it to you when I go through the raid, if you'd like.
I mean, I had
Were you looking
okay,
at this Tuesday? Is that what you're looking at? Or are you looking
yeah,
at?
no. This is Thursday, but feel me out. I had 413k healing, and the person underneath me had 280k healing. Okay, so I had a ton of
You're not a
healing.
priest, though.
Yeah,
You're
I
only
know.
measured off of other priests. Like that's a really
I
Yeah, that's a
important.
very important
I
detail.
do
Yeah,
understand
I
that.
know, I know you
And
understand that,
only
but it is like
priests of your type. So it actually switches out the three different specs. Shadow, blah blah blah. Like
yeah, of course,
Ozzy's
Yeah,
but
Kim got a
97 parse.
96% parse.
Well, but okay, for instance, Ozzy's 97 parse. He's affliction. He did like I don't know 150,000 less damage than I did, but still had a 97 parse because he was parsing affliction, not Destro.
here's just something important to look at in any given boss fight. If everyone is alive at the end with full health, if you wanted to increase your heals per second, you could only do that at the cost of another healer lowering their heals per second, right? So when you look at like
Mm,
a good attempt at something, you like the numbers are never for healers that it's like hard to explain, but like if you increase your personal parse, it would always just be at the expense of someone else's parse in a
right.
fight that goes well.
See, a way you could increase your actual stuff is if, while your circle of healing, like in between each, you threw out a renew to somebody or a shield. And that would like increase your parses quite a bit.
I mean, honestly, like I'm very proud that I was doing circle of healing the entire time and I only have 20% overheal. Right?
That's
Like
actually pretty
That's
nuts,
real.
yeah.
that's
That's really good.
huge, right? But that's what's not represented in my purse number.
Yeah.
Right?
Does
Like I
does
could
it
have just
take in?
kept spamming.
Okay. Does it
No,
take
no,
into
it's
account
heals.
overhealing?
Yes, it does. So your
Okay.
heals per
Good.
second are not including overheals. It's only including heals that actually went on to somebody. So it does already
Are you
include.
sure?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, like 9, yeah.
See, I'm
Because that's
not
why you
sure
parse.
because
No, I
you
You
answered. That's
might
why
actually
you.
have
be.
to, like, in details, you always had to go and look, and we used to shame people that would
I
overheal by
still
like
don't even. I don't think
50%.
it's. I don't even think it's like that in
It's
to
still,
actual heals.
Oh, it's
it
still like
still
that in
is in
details.
Oh,
Oh,
details, yeah.
100%.
oh, that's
But I
funny.
was just curious if Warcraft logs had like
I'm pretty
worked that
sure
out.
Warcraft logs is active healing per second. Because your parse, you could just heal a full health person the whole time,
Yeah.
which you can't do to get a parse. You can't cheese a parse by hitting flash heal over and
Oh,
over
somebody.
again.
Okay, so Seabase in chat puts out a good point. So I guess like DPS parses, you parse higher the shorter the fight. But healing, but I don't know if this is true, but he's saying healing parses, the slower the kill, the higher your parse.
Okay, yeah. He's also saying details doesn't show overheal.
It
Like, I agree.
doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, it
Hmm.
That's
doesn't.
what I'm.
It does show
It shows
overheal,
what your percentage of overhealing is, but the heals per
but
second, I'm pretty sure. Details might grow. I don't look at the details numbers. Warcraft logs is your healing that went on somebody. Like it's the amount you healed. It's not looking at the amount that your numbers would have been, because then all the logs of people doing high parses would just be the
yeah.
highest plus healing priest just spamming circle of healing,
Well, and
Yeah,
that's
and
yeah,
then
and
you
that
for
just
sure.
parse 99.
so that's what damage meters did back in like they fixed it in Wrath, the add-on, but like it actually would just
Oh yeah, back
show
in
overhealing
I
as
I was
like
a
good
healer.
in
I was a healer
vanilla.
in I was a healer in Mists of Pandaria, and it definitely like your heal per second was including your overhealing back then for sure.
Yeah.
But for
Okay, so
Warcraft
I just want to
logs, it's
point out
definitely
that this is why I don't look at parses because I healed the shit out of this fight.
well. That's what I'm trying to explain. Is like the better a fight goes, not only do the healing parses matter less, you can't parse as a healer. If we take
Yes.
less damage, if people get better at something, we take less
Right.
damage. There's like no so it is a little bit like the only time to look at heal parsing is I feel like when we wipe. That's like the only time I care about it
Right.
because it's like, okay, how come we wiped? And if is it a heals during that part issue? And oftentimes it's like usually mechanically based, right? Like, oh, two healers got water graved, that
Right.
sort of stuff.
Right.
But yeah, hero parses are tough. They're not that simple. Like they're good for like trying to like see what other people are doing. You could probably compare a similar guild and say like, let's see what casts they're doing. What are they casting more often? But just looking at the parse number, it's like, what info are you
Yeah.
getting? What other
No,
healers do they
none.
have? Maybe,
Okay, but
yeah, like
everybody
we,
kept talking about purses, so like I looked at them and I
yeah,
was like, that's bullshit. I don't even want to fuck with that.
yeah. For DPS, there's nothing else to do. That's the only thing that
That's
matters,
fair.
right? For DPS. So that's
Yep.
why,
Yep.
even for tank, as I'm going to explain, it doesn't matter that much. Um, but I cared a little bit. So this week, some different things happened. We down Vash last week, as you heard, which was pretty exciting. So we were 9 of 10. And my good guildmate Blunder, one of our hunters, decided he would try out survival this week. And as we were talking about survival, which brings two huge buffs to the raid. One is improved Hunter's Mark, which means melee gain like 110 attack power, maybe I think 110 on things that are hunter marked by the survival hunter. And then also, expose weakness gives you like a huge amount of attack power across the whole raid. I think it's 25% of the survival hunter's agility, which ends up being very, very high. So our physical DPS get a huge improvement at a pretty small cost to the hunter personally. So the hunter does take a DPS dip, I think, but the improvement across raid is a lot better. So we wanted to roll with that to sort of like ease the pain of like we'll go a lot faster, I think, if we have that up. Something else survival hunters can do, other hunters as well too. The best pet to use for DPS is the Ravager because it has like the strongest DPS ability, like Gore or something. But birds, owls and bats and maybe some other stuff too have the Screech ability, which we use like very, very briefly in Nax, I think, which it's basically a demo shout, but it stacks with demo shout. And one of the major reasons you do this is because demo shout, especially an untalented one like we have, can't bring the boss's improved attack power down to 0. So there's like a limit to how much you can bring down a boss's attack power. And depending on certain buffs the boss has, that amount of attack power changes. Well, the owl is super useful because an owl plus a low demo shout, which we have no demo shout. We don't bring an improved demo shout. When there's recklessness on the boss, which increases the boss's attack power, the owl helps negate that attack power back down. So we were like, oh, well, we're using Rec, so we should get you an owl. And I went to check.
Well, hold
I went
on.
to check
Okay, I was about to
if
say.
we were using Rec. I was like, well, let me double check we do use Rec. And I discovered we do not use Rec. So I went to the Warlocks, and apparently the Warlocks going into phase 2 had a little Warlock huddle and decided they were going to stop using Curse of Recklessness
No,
in
it
raid.
was it wasn't even in phase 2. Like we started it the pretty much like week 3 of raiding. The only time we would Curse of Wreck is when one of us were put into a group that was primarily melee and rage DPS.
Why?
Cuz we just
Why did you just make this decision on
um
your own?
we had a powwow and we talked about how melee sucked, and I think at
Listen
least
to
hold
this.
on. This is for me. I don't know if it's what the other warlocks thought, but I didn't think about it for hunters. And so that just completely didn't cross my mind, and so I was like, "Oh shit, we've been losing
Which
some really big DPS, and it would have helped out melee too." And so I was just like, I was blown away by it too, and it just
I do want to caveat as I'm yelling at Bob that any of the melee, myself included, should have noticed by now. I feel like it's way more on the melee to not know that wreck is up than it is on the warlock carrying that wreck is not up. But
I mean, to be fair though,
it was like,
they colluded to not put it up.
I know. I was giving them the benefit of the doubt. Like maybe they just forgot. And then Bob told me they had a powwow about it, and it like incriminated them even further. I was like, wait, you even had like a
Early,
little
yeah,
meeting about it.
early in like in phase one, and we just didn't think it was. And no one mentioned hunters. Like if I would have thought about
We're
hunters,
basically
it would
like
have
at
made
the
so much more
melee.
sense. Yeah, we just thought, okay, well, we only bring like 4 or 5 melee into the group. Like, and the tank is fine keeping aggro. Like, why do we even need to deal with this when Curse of Doom does so much damage? But it definitely made sense when I started
Yeah.
thinking
So
about hunters.
doing the crunching the numbers, if your guild's not sold on it, in tier 5 BIS, so I think Bob mentioned that Doom does about like 150 personal DPS across the fight. Is that about right? Or maybe FJ told me that.
FJ might have told you that. It's
Yeah, he
basically
said it's about
Doom.
150 personal DPS, which is huge, by the
Yeah,
way. That's a
Doom.
lot of personal DPS.
Doom is oftentimes 10 to 15% of your total damage.
Yeah. So the crazy part is though, is that Curse of Recklessness is like almost that same amount for a tier 5 hunter, but for each tier 5 hunter, and then for all of
Right.
the melee, and then also for the tank. So it
Well,
ends up being like very,
This is
very
why
worth it.
parses
and the
suck.
hunters parsed a lot higher this last week too. It was
Well,
really
yeah,
cool.
I mean, it was survival plus recklessness is like we had an insane boost to our DPS this week. Is really what I'm trying to say. This is not a monologue to yell at the warlocks, although it's fun. It's more like we discovered all this extra potential we had,
Yeah.
and we just like started using it,
But this
and
is
it
why
went
I think like
incredibly.
we can get on a soapbox here as to why parses sometimes derail the group, right? Like because there's a lot of utility in a lot of characters that don't result in parses.
Parses almost always are bad for the group. It's like, I love, like I said, we talk about FJ. FJ is an amazing player, but like on a LAR, he'll get his 99 parse by attacking the Phoenixes. You know, like
And then
freaking
he does it, and then all of us are like, "Well, I'm going to do it too if he's going to do it," you know. And then all of a sudden, there's 4 Curse of Agonies on all the ads.
yeah. So there's no there like even I mean starting in Molten Core when people were sappering for parses, immediately you kind of realize okay, parsing is a little bit odd, but I
Yeah.
think parsing is a lot better in TBC than in vanilla. Because in vanilla, the top parses were all insane cheese parses that we
Right.
couldn't even touch. But in TBC, it feels like, hey, we can touch these 99 parses now.
Well, and it does get even better in Wrath because everything's raid wide. Heroism / lust
Yeah, it's a
is
lot
raid
easier.
wide. Your druid crit buff is raid wide. I mean, like the totems are raid wide. I mean it's huge. So everybody gets every buff and gets an equal chance to parse, except for people like Locks who can't use Curse of Doom and stuff like that. But it gets
You guys seem to
better.
be parsing just fine still without Curse of Doom, and we had some wreck up. But yeah, we had a really good Tuesday. I can jump into our SSC.
Really
So
good.
our plan this week is it would be amazing to clear SSC on Tuesday. That was the goal. If we clear SSC on Tuesday, we're gonna have like an hour and a half on KT come Thursday. That's like the plan because we can get to KT pretty easily. SSC Morgrim's kind of hard. Hydros maybe we'll wipe. You know who knows? Like you just
Right.
don't know going into
Yeah.
SSC what's gonna happen.
How
But
many bosses did we one shot? All of them until Vash,
You
right?
you are really just giving
spoiler.
spoilers here. I mean, she already did with her with her she didn't die till Vash thing, but
That was immediate.
Right.
But yeah, so I went in looking to parse. I was like, we got a survival. Like, let's go. I got my Dragon Maw. So I go into Hydros, and this is the first time I dual wield because dual wielding's fine. I was actually really just worried about threat because dual wielding is actually really only better threat when you're not main tanking. So when you don't have aggro, it ends up being better threat. But Hydros is in a fight that you like need to build threat on. But so the real purpose is just DPS, right? You go you get the tanky enough that you can't be crit, then you DPS. And without wrecking, I got a 99 parse. So let's just say things are going pretty good with survival hunters and
Can
wreck
we
up.
can we talk
Big
about
fan.
Yip going into this though? On like, I'm gonna need a lot of healing, and I was like, wait, what? Why?
No,
Why?
okay, I actually don't need more healing on Hydra, but I just feel like I wanna give I had a little bit less health, but I just wanna give, like, a warning,
Yeah,
whenever
yeah,
I'm
no.
going in or changing something different, just in case. If I change something, I just wanna make sure I said something out loud so that healers know what's up.
I appreciate it because being your healer, like you said something, and I was like, oh, I should pay more attention to Yip, right? Because I'm used to, and was always the problem before, right? Like something would change, and then all of a sudden it'd be like the tank would go from like 100 to 20%, and I'd be like, what the fuck?
Yeah, as someone who personally gets very complacent, I would need to be warned as a healer. I'd be like, I know how much damage the tank takes, and it's like, oh, this is way more. But with Hydras, it's not a huge problem. But already noticeably, we normally barely three phase it, right? So we start on water on frost side. We go to nature, and then we kill when it's like I usually have to like shield wall at the end in order to live, but we don't want to pull it again when we kill it. This week, we probably could have killed it on that first nature side. Like I dragged it
Yeah,
back at like 15%
Yeah, we
health,
definitely
and
probably
we
could
just
have.
ignored the elementals and we crushed it. So next week, I can't even imagine. Like we're absolutely gonna go insane. And I think the wreck and survival helped, but just I think everyone really wanting to get through the content so that we could see KT on Thursday made
yeah.
everyone just really, really on
Everyone was
their
on
Well,
game.
point.
and like everybody's just getting to know the fight better. Like, and
Exactly. Yeah.
we have the groups, split up to the right and the left side, and the people that might pull accidentally with a dot that they mistimed, walks to either different side. So even if they did pull, they're going to go ahead and it's not going to pull more ads, and so it's. I mean, we just gotten better at the fight, and it just felt good.
Yeah. So that was really awesome. And right away, like you can look at the parses. I was fun like for the first time since phase one, I was like, okay, we're getting pretty good. In
Yeah,
phase
right.
one, I thought we were incredible, and we had a lot of like player shifts, and I still think we're good. But this was the first raid where I was like, we're doing incredibly.
We got this.
Even despite that, though, we were still losing like one person on every trash mob, which was kind of annoying. It was like only ever one person, but like the spore bats are suddenly killing people again. It's like this is kind of annoying, but it didn't really slow us down. We were pretty good at keeping up the speed.
Well,
We go to lurker.
Our Pally tank just was doing a really good job of getting the pulls in fast, and
Yeah.
he's he wasn't planning on being our Pally tank, and he's really started to come into his own in that role.
Yeah, he's doing
Can
a
I
great
just
job. He does
provide
this
a
funny
little bit
stuff.
of reinforcement here that
Yes.
he was very, very good about announcing when he was pulling, though.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That communication is honestly really key as a tank. Because he, even when he first switched over, would sometimes like do a pull silently and like get
Right.
whomped and just die.
Yeah,
But
and people
he was
would
just like,
die.
I'm pulling, move up, I'm pulling. And I think we've reassigned the expectation that you're getting mana right in front of the next trash pack. So if you do need to stand up and heal, you're not like all the way back there. You're like, oh, I'm
Right.
just gonna have to drink again. So there haven't been like worst case pulls happening at all in SSC. So we go to
Yeah, and it's
lurker.
been hold on. It's
No,
been better because we move up and people don't auto pull, right? So Cross
yeah,
wasn't auto
yeah.
pulling
We move
when
up,
we
we
were
check,
all
we
there.
pull. Yeah,
Right? Like, it was like, we got a couple seconds at least, and I could sit down and drink,
he's
and then
using a
know that
mana
I could
add-on too,
drink.
or weak aura. He's looking at total like healer mana as well when he's
Right.
pulling to like ensure that healers have enough mana. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is
So
really
that's been
really useful.
helpful.
So it felt a lot better for you than for trash.
Yes, it did.
That's definitely good. Um, I did something a little BM. We go to Lurker, and I thoroughly examined logs to see what warriors were doing in order to parse high. And I noticed that a lot of them were dual wielding on Lurker. But Lurker damage is actually kind of high, so that surprised me. So when I dug deeper into the logs, I realized that they weren't tanking, that druids were tanking, and they were just sitting in defensive stance and cheesing their parses by not tanking.
Ah,
And I was like, that is so dumb that you can do that. And I
right.
think some of the logs are getting fixed to require a certain amount of uptime on the boss, but not all of them. And maybe it's because you tank Nagas during it that they can show up as defensive. That might be the reason why. But I was like kind of upset. I was like, oh, now I'm not going to be able to parse as good. But we get there, and it's tauntable. Lurker is a tauntable boss. So I just tell our druid to be ready to taunt it just in case. I pop a stone shield and and I dual wield main tank Lurker on progression night when we're trying to get SSC done as quickly as possible. It's like the most BM thing I've done in raid as a main tank. But I was like, I think I can do it. Like we have 6 healers here.
You
When sometimes we're
didn't.
doing this,
It wasn't a struggle.
it wasn't a struggle. It wasn't
Yeah.
hard at all. Like, it absolutely worked out fine, and
Oh,
the reason
yeah.
I wanted to do it, it's not just for cheesing parses. The big reason I wanted to do it was because I wanted to see if we could get only 1 submerge, and I can do,
Yeah.
like, more than double my DPS by dual wielding, and we're usually, like, relatively close. We're still not there, though, so we still have the
Yeah.
2 submerges, but I think we're very close to just getting 1 submerge, and that cuts off, like, a minute and a half of your fight time. It's nuts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we as the locks going into the start, me and FJ are the only locks on our
Yeah.
platform, and he's just like, "Hey, I say we just dot and kill and don't even fear the ads." I was like, "Okay, we'll give it a shot." Yeah, we didn't need to fear him at all. We just dotted, killed him so much faster. It was just like they don't move. Like, we just moved
Yeah.
away from him and just like nuked him, and it worked out fine. And we were actually
To be
able to help
fair,
others like faster. It was pretty cool.
To be
yes,
fair.
but to be
Okay.
fair, you guys took a lot more damage. So a little heads up that you're not going to be
It's the tank
fearing
thing,
those
yeah.
is helpful to know that we will have to heal you more. Because I remember being like, what the hell is happening? And I'm right by the lock island, right? So I knew like I could heal you, right? But I wasn't expecting to have to heal you that much. So
Interesting. I didn't even notice like my health going down, so you must have just been really fast or
it
shielding or
wasn't
something.
necessarily you, but like all the locks. Like there was one
Yeah.
and I
It would
don't
have just
know
been
who it
No.
me and
was.
FJ who
No,
I'm
we took
talking
a lot
about.
of damage on my side too. So that one lock comes over to where the mages are. I think we were down a mage too. So I think a lock came
Yeah.
over with like a shadow priest in hands. We were taking a lot of damage on my side. I think they were maybe standing in. If maybe if you're in melee, you take more damage of those guys of the casters.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
mean,
quite sure,
yeah,
but they
like
were.
they don't really mess with us. Like that's why we decided not to fear because they don't move. Like we could just move back. We dot up both of them, and then we nuke one, and then we nuke
Yeah.
the other.
Okay,
I think
well,
the problem just comes in like I'm used to them taking 0 damage. So
yes.
any amount of damage is like, "Whoa, what's going on here?"
Yeah, it's like,
Um,
whoa.
but I think that's the moral of the story is if your healers are aware, you run into less
Hmm.
problems. But we didn't run into any problems on Lurker. We're
Yeah.
not quite at the point where we're one submerging, but I think that we can get there. We usually lose in a melee early. Uh, I don't know. I don't want to talk about it, but I think it's a little silly when we lose melee on that fight. But um,
Mm,
yeah, so sometimes we lose a melee. We'll be all right. So we go to Leo next. Again, this time, in my head at least, I'm like, this is a good fight to dual wield on because that snap threat is really, really important. So I do dual wield, and it actually is pretty good. Like I'm able to build threat really well. It helps. One of the problems I was running into is a lock would have a dot or something on the boss. It'll start running over there, and now I'm not getting any rage because it's not attacking
right.
me. But with the dual wield setup, I'm able to do more threat while people start like going ham on them already. Um, but the problem was I didn't tank the boss enough because we have all 3 of our tanks picking it up, and I let Prosecutor hold it once in favor of more DPS, and I wasn't a tank parse on it. I was a gladiator parse, which also is because when he's in demon form, I go into Zerker stance. in order to do more damage. But I was looking and like you have to have like a certain amount of melee hits taken and stuff, a percentage of melee hits taken from Leo in order to count as a tank or something. So I just counted as gladiator for that one, but I did parse good. But we'll need to reevaluate that. But the fight itself went good. Actually, I don't think we had many deaths or anything.
We
There was a few.
We
only
actually didn't.
we didn't. At the very end, things started going wild
Oh yeah,
because
everything was perfect till the
everybody
end.
like it was like the last few percents, and we just thought we could down them, and so
Yep.
everybody just dropped all the rules out the window and started just trying to
Yeah.
nuke and
Yeah.
didn't let the tanks pick up. And then like towards the end, like maybe 9% or 7%, FJ's Curse of Doom went off at the wrong time and got him just destroyed. Like, and that just happened. Like, that's such a huge jump. Like, if
Yeah.
the Curse of Doom goes off right after he transitions when you're supposed to pick him up, like, you're just screwed. Like, the only way to fix it is to put a Curse of Agony over the top of it so it cancels your Doom out. Because you can't re-Doom, because Doom is, you can only cast Doom as soon as Doom hits because it's every 1 minute. So, yeah. But it still
we
was way better than
definitely-
most weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely like there was maybe a couple people dead at the end, but not
It
nearly the
wasn't
chaos.
scary. Yeah. It wasn't
It
scary. I
wasn't
remember
like-
being annoyed now though. I definitely keyed up a like this fight doesn't change when he's almost died. Like the rules
Yeah,
are still the same. Like because it is just like I get it though. If it's gonna die anyway, I just don't want other people to die and feel like, oh, like why did I die? When it's like their fault.
Right.
I
No,
need to like give
that's
some
right, though.
scolding.
And I think the hard thing is that there's these like sections of area that you're supposed to be in, right? But as soon as something happens, like somebody pulled it off of Harry, and
Oh
now
yeah.
Harry's right here. So
Yeah, Harry's in
your
the middle and
section-
it's like,
yeah,
oh
it's like, wait a minute. And then I try to stay in my section, but I still need to be able to heal Yip, who's all of a sudden all over on the other side, right? Like, and I think maybe some more communication about, hey, Yip, your healers are over here.
Mm.
And if you run that way, you're out of line
Listen,
of sight.
I just chased the tank or the boss.
Mm-hmm.
When Leo's whirlwinding, I'm just like the whole time. I don't know where
Right.
I'm ending up.
And I think maybe having healers either spread out more or following you, like somebody following you, but like I don't know, I'm very rule governed, right? Like I'm supposed to be in this area, like I should stay in this area.
Yeah,
And
I
when
mean,
I
there's
go
a.
out of it, I
It's like,
feel bad.
yeah, we make a lot of charts, like so everyone knows. Like boss fights go so much better when you just say, stand here.
Mhm.
Here's a chart,
Yeah.
stand here. And every time it goes way better. But there is an amount of like rigidness that comes with having a chart that if you can't adapt or
Right.
know what the boss fight really does, then you can run into problems like that. But we're pretty
Dude.
good. Like everyone is adapting really strong when things go wrong,
Yeah.
luckily, right now. But yeah, like there's ways to improve that a chart can't really help
That
with.
Right.
that
And I think
tool
it's
has been
that like
amazing.
resistance where I'm at the like farther end of the chart, right? And me getting the other side is a lot longer, right? So I think just us realizing that like, hey, we can be at like the edge of this chart and move as necessary rather than at the far end because we're just so used to
Yeah.
being so far away.
Well, I think
as we
it's like
can.
Vash too, where if you have a chart and the boss moves, everyone needs to just sort of like shift, like at the like be in the same cardinal direction from the boss, but you might need to adjust where in the room that is. But that was Leo. Everything went fine.
Real quick for that though,
Yeah.
that tool, I'll try to include a link in chat.
Yeah.
That tool is been really cool for Hearthscar. I was so happy because I gave that to him. I got it from Crix, but I gave it to him like mid phase 1, and I was like, we probably don't need it now, but this might be really cool in the future. And he's really utilized it and made us some really neat charts.
Charts help. I mean, it's unbelievable how much better things go after we make a chart. Like, it's like, oh, okay, this
Yeah,
helps.
it's huge. Sometimes it gets a little confusing because the map won't show correctly like the direction. You'll have to like kind of rotate your head to like be like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
this is how it looks like on the actual map. But the other thing is our second Fang of Leviathan dropped. We got a lot of casters really high on the DKP, but it didn't go to a caster.
We went to the person who deserved it the most.
It went
Our
super
paladin tank.
cheap to a paladin tank. Yeah, I was so
Yep.
confused. I was like, okay, I don't know what you guys are doing.
Yeah, that is interesting. So were there people who could have bid more than that? I sort of
Oh
assumed that,
yeah.
that he was just the highest and got it for the highest, but
No,
people
I
kind
I
of
mean,
let him.
yeah, spell check and both spell check and Harry like are sitting like way high, and it seems weird to me because the decay hits you so much harder when you're that high on DKP.
Here's the
Okay,
only
but
here's the
here's
only
the thing.
reason that you would do that is because there are bosses we haven't downed yet. In their head,
Yeah.
they're probably like, this boss is on farm, so I'm gonna get another shot at this. But they might want something from KT right away. So they don't want to
KT
like
and
lose
Vosh,
their
yep, definitely.
position. Yeah. So it could just be they don't want to lose their position and they're hoping another one drops. And you had the biggest upgrade because you went from not having the Prince
For
Dagger
sure.
to that. So hey, maybe they got some long con plan going on, but I
Mm.
was relatively happy to see our paladin tank get it. I assume it helps with threat a lot. I'm really not like TBC paladin tank like knowledgeable, but as
I'm
long as it helps with threat, I'm happy.
I'm pretty
So
sure he
wait,
was using the same sword that I was using from Hellfire at
Yeah.
160 spell damage. So it was a huge upgrade for him too. I just thought spell check would have wanted it because he's still using that blade from Hellfire. So that was a little
Their
bizarre to me.
4-piece is incredible, so it could have been that he wanted to make sure he got his
Uh
4-piece because it
mm,
if flat. I don't know if you know this. I think it's 20%. It just increases their damage by 20% flat.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it increases the mana cost and the damage of Arcane Blast. So, like, their mana consumption goes up, but their actual damage per hit also goes up insanely. So that 4-piece is really good, and I'm pretty sure Hearthscare blocked him last week from getting the 4-piece because Hearthscare got his Hunter 4-piece, which is shared. So
nah.
it could have it could have come down to that. It's tough with DKP. I kind of wish like everyone was just like in. I wish everyone colluded with each other. I mean,
Yeah,
I
right?
guess that's like loot council where no one has loot drama, so it's like way too hard for it to happen. But I always like when people are like nice and give each other upgrades that are better. Like we had the
Yeah.
well, actually, I'll talk about what dropped later, later on in the dungeon. But um, Fathom Lord. When I'm not even gonna talk about Fathom Lord, it's a pretty simple fight, and we do it the same every
Yeah.
time, and it's like just on farm. It's very easy. Uh, I don't think we did anything different. I've read some people who are leaving the priest up and killing Fathom Lord straight through the enrage, which I would love to try when we're like done with progression, but I don't want to try it during progression. Like, what's the point of wiping
Yeah, right.
during progression?
Because you know
Uh,
we will.
yeah, like at least once, right?
At
Um,
least once.
Moragrim was the single cleanest Moragrim that any guild's ever done, perhaps. I don't know. But it felt like an entirely different fight. When Morgrim goes well, it
Yeah.
makes me wonder like how it ever goes wrong. Like the paladin just had all the aggro, didn't even get close to dying. I didn't get close to dying taking Morgrim. It was just like,
Yeah.
oh, like okay, we'll just
We had
do.
healers go into water graves, but at the same time, right? This is the right fight. Water graves.
Yep.
Yeah. At the same time, we didn't have 3 healers go into water graves at the same time. I
Yeah.
feel like this is just such an RNG fight where if you have 2 healers go into water graves at the same time, you're fucked. And if you
Yeah, it's
don't,
really bad.
you're good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean it went swimmingly, and at this point we're in the phase where you're dragging him and the watery graves are so far behind, and I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, what's going on? We haven't wiped this entire raid, like, and we're
Yeah.
just blowing through this. Like, we're at like the hour and a half mark or something like that. Like,
We pulled Morgrim at the hour 29-minute mark.
You guys,
And it
yeah,
was
it
just
it
was
took
went
so bizarre. I'm
everything
pinching
in
myself.
me. It took everything in me not to send Bushy a message at that moment that was like, I have 0 deaths. And I was like, nope, don't jinx yourself, Mel. Just let it ride.
Yeah, I mean, it was incredible at that point. Like, we really were just going through all the content like it was on farm for months. Like, we just were blasting through,
Yeah.
and it wasn't a problem. But of course, after Morgrim comes the I don't want to say it's more RNG, but that last phase, it feels like RNG. Maybe it's not RNG, but it
Yeah.
feels like it when we do it. So we go in to Vash finally. I say finally, but we have quite a while of attempts on her, so we're feeling really, really good. Even if we don't get her down, only having Vash up was like a minimum goal that we wanted to hit for sure, and we blew that out of the water for sure. The first, well, I guess we've been spoiled already. The first Vash attempt went kind of wonkily. We had people dying way too early. People dying like right at the beginning of phase 3.
Yeah.
We had someone die. I think we had like one person die in
In
phase
phase
2.
1.
Oh, we had someone die in phase 1, didn't
Yeah,
we?
and we used a battle
Yeah.
res on
We
them.
used that was like, yeah, you really hate to see that happen.
Yeah.
So that was pretty worrisome. But yeah, I mean, we go to
I mean, the
uh
first attempt.
phase 3. Well,
Oh,
the first attempt looked horrible. We ended up at 2%.
yeah,
Yeah.
we got it to 2%.
We
Like,
got Vash at 2% on, like, one of our worst attempts of, like, many of the attempts that we've done. We've done 20 attempts. It was probably in the bottom half of as far as, like, execution goes, people dying way too early in phase 3, and then we go ahead and do a second attempt, and it was so clean. We shaved, like, 2 minutes off our kill time.
So
We
clean.
we lost no one until the last, like, 2 or 3% of the fight. The
Yeah.
fight lasted 8 minutes, 49 seconds,
yeah,
and we had
we're at 5%, and spell check goes, nobody's died.
actually, this is even crazier than I realized. This so at she goes down at 8 minutes, 49 seconds, and at 8 minutes, 44 seconds, 5 seconds before she dies, every single person was alive in our raid.
What?
Which is every single person was alive in our raid 5 seconds before she died, and then a melee died 4 seconds before she died, but that's acceptable. We can take that.
Yeah.
That was like I couldn't even believe it. I was like, "Who are we?" We just crushed Vash.
So I'm
Right.
curious if I did the right thing on this fight, because this week was the curse of Wreck Lock. So in my head, I thought, well, I'm just going to put Curse of Wreck on uh, the melee guys that you're taking in the middle, but I'm going to still use Curse of Agony on the Strider guys. And I think it actually worked out better because having the dots on both like helps so much in like getting them down
No,
quicker.
I think that was huge because what we were doing is we were able to before we were waiting for an additional Naga to come out before we were dunking, but now we were actually dunking before that Naga came out. So we were
Yeah.
able to close it out like very, very easily coming into that third phase. So it definitely it that amongst whatever else we were doing. It's always hard to be like this is the one thing because we changed a lot over the week, but undeniably having 800 additional armor pen is huge and the Naga are where a lot of the melee are. The only
And it's
problem is
just it's
is
also
too.
800 armor pen. I hadn't thought about that either. It's an instant tanking buff for any
Yep.
tank immediately. Like maybe not the paladins as much, but definitely bear and warrior. It's you have to build up sunders. You have to wait till you can do a five bubble decrease armor from rogues. I forget what it's called. But yeah, like it's just
Improved exposed armor.
it's just an instant. Your first
Yeah.
hit gets much more aggro, and it's just something. I feel dumb for not thinking about it. As we were going through progression, like I
Yeah,
just feel dumb.
it's
Right.
just one
Can
of
I
those things.
mention something here though?
Of course.
Because I actually didn't die at all in SSC because our wipe, I was mind controlled at the time that we wiped, and then I just came alive and I didn't die. And I was like, I remember being on the stairs and being like, what? What? Oh, okay. And then I
Yeah,
Especially
start
if
and I
messing
someone just
was
people,
dropped you
right?
off.
and I was dead right next to her, and I was like, huh, she just lived. She didn't have a soul stone. Huh. Weird.
Yeah, I'm just alive. So I didn't die at all in SSC.
That is incredible.
And I
That's a big turnaround. Well, you got a lot of gear last week. I feel like
thank
we
you.
need to tell
Thank you.
people if they don't
Mhm.
understand why Mel stopped dying. It really just was she had too little health. Like this week couldn't have been more proof that you just did not have enough health than
I
you just
know.
going from like 20 deaths to none. Like I don't
I
know.
was like, this makes me feel so much better. At least it's just not that I'm super bad and that I just keep dying. It's literally that I just did not have enough health. So
Yep.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
just
And
really
then
good.
so we were done like super early, and we're like, Alar?
Well, hold on. I
Okay,
did
go
want to
ahead.
say something I like about loot. So one of our hunters has not even had the Phoenix bow this whole time. Was using Wolf Slayer, I think, like the wolf rifle from the opera event, Big Bad Wolf, which was rough. And he didn't have the highest DKP, but the highest DKP hunter let him have the bow because it was a bigger upgrade for him. And it's like stuff like that where it's like, this is like what
yeah.
loot council is for, this sort of thing. And it's nice to see in a DKP system that
But we
like
can just
we
give
can,
it like a
And
community.
and then
yeah.
the last then what was it? Karazhan? It dropped
uh,
immediately for
oh
him,
yeah,
the
his
bow.
next Karazhan, the Phoenix bow dropped. And that's pretty
The next
unbelievable.
day.
And the worst part
Of
is,
course.
there was one night, and this I'm glad he's got a better bow now, but I'm sure this kept him up at night. He asked to switch Kara groups, and the other Kara group had a bow drop and went to like no one, I think, and
Oh
he left
no.
it. So it was a long journey for our friend, but finally he's got an amazing bow, and it's just nice to see gear go out to people who
Yeah,
not only deserve it, but like it's just a huge upgrade for them. It's always nice to see that kind of stuff.
for
But
sure.
yeah, we have enough time. I think we have like 40 minutes left, and we just
Yeah.
say, let's go do a LAR. Let's get as much done as we can. Um, and that was actually kind of rough, wasn't it? Didn't we like die? Oh, we face pulled a LAR
We
somehow.
Trash.
yeah, and
No,
trash
it was
too.
trash.
With
We died to
trash,
trash too, but then we ended up face pulling a LAR right when we have like 7 minutes left. It's like, this is
I think everybody was
unfortunate.
on a high from just how good SSC went. It was just chat, not
Yeah.
chat, but like voice chat was getting overrun a little bit more because everybody was happy, and yeah.
Let's see who pulled.
It wasn't Mel.
I think it's who I think it was. Interesting.
Well, don't leave us in suspense.
I'm not actually sure. I think it was a face pull. Um, friendly Cass. Oh no. Was I the one that pulled? I don't think so. I don't think so. No, because it's like a second in.
Oh,
The first cast that shows is commanding shout, which I did from the bottom, but I think I commanding shouted like after it pulled because it's not at 0 seconds, right? So I wouldn't have been what pulled. It's just the first thing I
Mm,
casted in combat. I don't actually know what pulled.
mm.
I don't see a dot on it or anything. I see Kim's Void Fiend on it or whatever, which is weird.
The Shadow Fiend?
Shadow
Oh, that
Fiend,
could have
yeah.
definitely been because
Oh,
that
that
thing
would
just has a
definitely pull
mind of its
it.
own.
No, but he didn't pop it till like 9 seconds in.
Oh.
So I don't know what pulled, but Alar face pulled. I guess it probably was a face pull, because I don't see any else thing on him, which is weird because I didn't even know that was possible. But that was kind of silly. But Alar just goes well now. I would like to try two tanking him. There's like specific rules to the way that he moves, where like he'll only move left, right, or across, and he'll only move across starting on like uh the fourth time that he moves. So we actually have a while of DPS where we know he won't go across, and you just
Yeah.
wait next to him, and then the other tank can just like adjust to where he is on the other side. Um, so we could try it that way sometime. There's no major point right now, but I think eventually it wouldn't be bad to have some extra DPS on Alar during that first part. But Alar is really easy, so we kill Alar, and that ends our night. And I'm stoked. I got a 95 overall parse in SSC, and I felt really, really good about that.
Hey.
Probably my best rate I've ever had, like all together. Because even when I was DPS warrioring, Bob remembers vanilla. You would just like, I'm just gonna try to parse on like these 2 fights tonight.
Yep.
Like you would never be like, I'm gonna parse for the whole night. You would never do that. But as tank, it was kind of fun. But a big reiteration that some of what I was doing was rather unnecessary, but I knew that our guild could handle it, which is why I wanted to do it. That's really all it came down to. I think that it's not hard to have fun as a tank, but you just have to be a little bit responsible, just a little bit responsible. And I have like every piece of gear in the game that isn't like, and like I obviously need like my huge pieces from this tier, but other than that, I've got like every DPS piece, every tank piece. Like I just have all these options that I want to try.
Yeah, and back in vanilla, like, you weren't gonna parse any fight, as a warrior that you weren't using rec on. So you were trying to
Exactly.
basically you try to parse on an early boss, then you're going through so fast, you'd be like, okay, now rec's gonna be up for this next boss. Then you try to go to the second boss, then parse on, the fifth boss maybe or sixth boss after that. So
Yeah.
it was definitely a juggle there and trying to keep world buffs and everything else.
Trying to keep, yeah, and if you're trying to parse on a late boss, you're just kind of chilling out
Yeah,
for
and
the raid. You don't
just
want to
like,
go too hard and
yep.
die. Yeah, good old time. So that's our Tuesday. The single most incredible Tuesday rating I think we've had this expansion. So that was pretty exciting. It really made me feel like, whoa, like we got something going here that I thought I was kind of worried about. I want to talk about Rec
We have
really
leveled
quickly.
up. We've leveled up quite a
Yeah.
bit.
One of the reasons that Rec wasn't there is and not this isn't like a drama thing, but we've had Corpse on before. He was the paladin tank in our guild who ended up leaving, and he was kind of like our knowledge center. So like he would be the person who would know that Curse of Rec isn't on the boss. And I think that
Yep.
that's something that we're learning is like, how do we make up these gaps of like roles that were being filled by other people and make sure that we're like competing well in raid. So like, our Boomkin took over, and I mentioned a little bit last week, but our Boomkin took over moving shamans around so that we could put them in the right groups, make sure the right people are getting mana tided and get multiple heroisms to warlocks. And we're really trying to optimize for progression that way. And that's someone who's not an officer, who's not a raid leader, who's just like stepping up in order to fulfill this purpose. And it's helping the raid out a ton. So that sort of thing has been super useful to kind of compensate. Like, wait, our data center is gone. We need to like double check this stuff on our own now.
Yeah, well, and him doing that kind of leads us into the first boss of Thursday, where I've bitched about it every week. It
We did
was
it.
unbelievable this week because of Desu, our Boomkin. And yeah, why don't you tell him what we
Hey,
did?
I did fine. It had nothing to do with Daysu. Get the hell out of here.
Yeah, but
it had to do with me.
But but you got 2 heroisms,
Yeah, but I didn't
which was
need 2
huge.
heroisms.
I mean,
Get outta
any
here.
week prior, we've had to slow DPS and not cast.
I
This
changed.
time
Did you
we
not
were
hear
able.
my spiel? I 95 SSC without 2 heroisms. There's a reason
But
that we
for
did good.
Void Reaver specifically, it's a really
It's not
good
the
thing.
heroisms. I know that you're saying it, but it's not the heroisms that we kept threat.
I
We
think you're
kept
wrong.
threat. You just are objectively incorrect. Take a look at the threat meters. I kept threat for half the fight. Bushy keeps threat for half the fight, and both of us were top 2 the whole time. Unrelated, like 2 heroisms did not do that. It helps. If you're a normal guild, 2 heroisms. If you're a Yip guild, go ahead and make your Dragon Maw, get a survival hunter, wreck on pull,
So,
wreck
okay.
on pull, bring nightmare seeds so that you
See?
have more health. Like I did so many things that it's like insulting to say that it's
You
just
make,
the
I mean,
heroism.
you do make a good point because it's just like that thing we were talking about where we made so many changes. Having Curse, well, you didn't have Curse of Wreck though because I was an
Didn't have
idiot
Curse of
and I had my Curse of Tongues.
This is
Like,
really funny.
because basically, like whatever curse I'm on, I use the same button. So I have my curses like down at the bottom, and I just move the curse that I'm actively assigned to up.
Oh, to that hotkey.
Yeah,
That's actually
and
really smart, yeah.
so I had Curse of Tongues there because I was doing that on Mag Gruul, the little alt raid we did the night before. And so I'm trying to put it on Void Reaver, and I'm like, dude, it he must be immune to it. But you're right. You did have the survival hunter. Like you had your Dragon Ball. You had more things than you'd had
Yeah,
prior.
all of it. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Two Heroes is absolutely insane, but like everything combined made Void Reaver it just changed the fight entirely. We were both our tanks were on top like the whole time. It was absolutely incredible. Big fan. It was really funny to hear. I wish Bob had casted Curse of Tongues more. I went back to look at the logs. You only did it 3 times before you were like, he's immune. I can't do it anymore. But I would have loved to see like 9 or 10 Curse of Tongues. Like, why isn't it working? Why can't he be wrecked? But
No,
oh well.
and it was horrible because I started the fight out and I was like, Doom, you just like used to doing something. I'm like, oh shit, I'm on curse. So I tried to cast it twice. It's like immune. And I was like, all right, guys, they're immune to wreck, and they're like, oh, let's just be mechanical. And then after the fight was over, I was like, all right, guys, I'm an idiot. He's immune to curse of tongues. I was trying to tongues the whole time. My bad.
Yeah, we were like trying to like cope and find excuses. Our raid leader was like, guess like mechanical things can't be right. And we we're like trying to figure it out. But yeah, that was funny. But no, so
We'll give it to Heartsguard though. Like I think I do much better at raid healing in that than just healing you. Yep.
yeah, I think that's a smarter way to utilize you as like the
Yeah, like
only priest.
Circle of Healing is OP in that fight.
It's really for the pounds, like
Especially.
it's really, really good.
Yeah.
But that went incredibly. So not just having 2 heroisms, but not it was suggested to double heroism the warlocks, and saying no to that was also a big benefit. Not just saying no to the double heroism on warlocks, but taking that extra heroism.
That
That
was me. I was like, I don't think that's a good idea. Why
I
don't you
was
give
like,
it to the
yeah.
tanks?
I was like, listen, I'm gonna do more threat this week, but last week they had to slow down. I don't know if we should double heroism warlocks when they're
Yeah.
slowing down normally. But yeah, so that went really, really well. Finally, our poor warlocks could do a little more DPS and not feel gated by the tanks. But that went
For
really, really well.
them.
Yeah, dude.
Then we
And
went.
shout out to Harry. He got to get like a 95 parse on it. So that was huge for
Hell
him.
yeah, that's awesome. Then we go to Solarian, and boy, did I have some insane tank optimizations for soakers on Solarian. And by that I mean this time I whacked the boss until the first Wrath of the Astromancer came out, and then I ran out and soaked for the rest of the time. Astromancer is so easy. I don't even know how we wiped to that boss if it's possible. I feel bad. That's probably gonna insult people who've wiped to it, but if you have soakers who are max arcane resist, the fight's pretty easy.
Yeah,
I
have
feel
we
like.
ever wiped to it? I don't know that we
No,
have.
no,
Yeah, I don't
no,
think we
no.
have.
Okay, but I have died to
The
it.
arcane missiles are the scariest part. If your healers are unable to like have that macro, I guess. Is it easy to use the macro?
It depends. So I have to be targeted on the boss to use the macro, which is usually fine. But when I do a certain spell, it targets on the person I'm looking at,
Yeah,
and I like to like have the target sometimes the tank that I'm looking at all the time.
yeah, of course.
So you have to be targeted on the boss for it to work, which
Yeah,
is
because it's a focus. It's like cast on the focus target or the target of target that you're casting on.
I think
I
it's
think
target
it's
of target.
Yeah, it's target of target
It's
yeah,
because
target
you
of
target of
change
target.
it.
Yeah, it's target of target of the boss. So it's
Yeah.
whoever the
So
boss
when it
is on.
switches,
No,
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 yeah,
it's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
target of the boss. It's
It's
target
target of the
of
boss.
who you are. No,
okay, yeah, no, yeah, you're right, but that's fundamentally with the same thing because you're targeting the boss
but not for a
or the
healer.
arcane missiles. But for the arcane missiles part, you have to be targeting a target of the boss, basically. Like that's how you heal through the arcane missiles. Is basically you're
I
already
have to be
casting.
targeted on the boss if I'm
Right.
gonna heal him.
So you're healing the target of the boss.
Yeah, so when
Because the boss,
when
yeah,
the
No,
boss changes
the boss
targets.
has to be my target.
Yes, we know that.
correct. And you are
And you're
healing the
healing.
target of the boss.
Exactly.
Correct.
because
Yep.
you're not healing the boss.
That's what we've said.
So what happens
Okay,
is the
but
arcane
does this
missiles
not
will
make
kill
sense to you
somebody.
guys? Like, we do not target the boss as healers.
I get it. You
Yeah, I
can
get it.
target the boss as a healer, though.
You can, yes, and I do, but the majority of my fight happens in this other little zone of
Yeah.
not the boss, right?
Yeah, so this
And
is what
so,
I mean, though. This is probably the only hard part of the fight, is if your healers are struggling with that part, I could see you wiping. But our healers, from as soon as they got the macro, were able to keep arcane missiles people up. Maybe one person will die at worst.
Seabase in chat says the macro should, like, part of the macro should be to target the boss first, then heal target of target.
Okay.
it depends on what you're using, though.
I don't
which
think
would
it
make
matters that
sense.
much. I personally, this is gonna sound crazy, but when I heal, I always have the boss as my target, and I just have hover over macros for all my heals. So I
Correct. I
never
have hover over
untarget.
macros for all my heals as well.
Well,
But you target the main tank a lot because you're a tank
Yeah,
healer.
because they're the one I'm worried about, right? Like, I
Yeah.
want to see if I have hover over macros, I don't always see all of their debuffs or all of their, like, everything else. And
we do
it gets
need to push
really
this
annoying.
on, though. We have a lot to talk about. We need to get through the KT, and then
Fine.
we need to get to news.
All right.
Sorry.
Cool.
As you'll hear later, you're gonna get the reverse of what you got last week, where you're gonna hear us talk about KT later before we attempt it, right?
Yep. Yeah. It was the night before the attempt.
Yeah. So I won't go into like a ton of specific details of how we're doing the fight because you're gonna hear it soon from Naismith. We took a lot of what he did, but we of course kill Solarian, and it's time for KT. And the trash before KT is kind of a pain. we weren't prepared for whirlwind arcane missiles, which I think is the coolest spell in the game. Like a whirlwind that shoots arcane missiles out is incredible. And as someone who only did the eye by like one-shotting it very easily later on with like a high-level character, I had no idea about this ability until now, and I'm stoked. But we kill it down, we get it down fine after we like almost wipe the first time, or maybe we do wipe the first pull, and we end up on KT. Now, we've heard that this is easier than Bash, and I think as overall, I would probably agree after doing it. So I went in kind of confident. We had about an hour, 40 minutes, I think, at that point, maybe an hour and a half for KT attempts, and we're hoping to get quite a few in. And there's so many phases, we just wanted to get pulls in. So we just explained like the first two phases where you're killing each individual lieutenant, and then you're killing the weapons. So we go in, just kind of focus on those two phases. We get
I
it
feel
down
like
pretty good.
Oh, sorry. I just want to interject. I feel like there's more to know in KT, and it's a more in-depth fight, but I feel like it's less punishing than Vash, and that's the difference.
Yeah, I feel like there's Vash is super punishing with way more just like random one-shot abilities. That's what I think is really annoying. With KT, it's really like up to you to determine. Everything's really up to you. You're not going to get these random poison spores flying on you. You're not going to get an unfortunate static shock on the tank. What it's really going to be is just like, oh, did we kite Thaladred in a good direction? Did we, did everyone do their job right? And that comes down to like memorizing each phase pretty much, just learning what each phase is and where you're supposed to be. As a tank, I don't have that hard of a job personally, but the first phase is very, very easy. You're just killing them one at a time and trying to place them right. And we knocked that out of the park right away. Thaladred dies exactly where we want him to die, in the back of the room. Phase 2, we weren't quite sure what to do with the axe. We figured out for us, pulling the axe just straight out of the group, we had plenty of DPS to kill all the weapons, and it just made it so we didn't take a ton of extra damage. Like, we didn't have to have the melee make sure they weren't getting hit. People who were running in to pick up the weapons early were like dying to the axe. So pulling the axe out just ended up being way smarter. But if you don't have a lot of DPS, that could be a challenge, because we were doing really solid DPS on the weapon phase.
Something that I found too,
Yeah.
the bow was outside of the AoE range. So I don't know if the other warlocks did it, but I later in later attempts, like I think at least I started in 3. I might have started in 2. But I would run over and put full dots up on the bow, and then by that time, the tank had control of the other mobs, so I'd either put
Oh,
a
yeah.
couple curses on the weapons and then start AoEing, but sometimes I would just start AoEing depending on if the tank called for AoE at that point.
Well, I think that's a really important point for almost any progression fight. DPS need to find where they can get every like ounce of damage out. Like you could easily just sit there and wait
Right.
till you can AoE, but running over, getting dots out, maybe dotting the axe that I pulled out, and then AoEing,
Yep.
it's gonna help a ton if everyone is on top of it. Like if everyone can just do a couple more seconds of DPS, you have that extra couple of seconds at the end of the fight to get organized for the next phase.
Yeah, you just have to be very careful that they don't do the extra couple seconds of DPS on a like mob that they shouldn't be DPSing.
Yeah,
Like the
we had a couple
little
AoE problems of things getting spread out too, like right at the
yeah.
beginning. So that was, but that phase two, I don't think is that crazy. If you have warlocks who can AoE in a paladin tank, you can get a lot of DPS down. Um, our big problem that we did know was a bug. I just forgot all about it until it happened. If going into phase 3, you're not within range of Kael'Thas, you actually keep the same threat on the revived mobs. So we had this issue where the Lord Sanguinar ran over to me because I ran to the back to be at Thaladred. And I wasn't the only one who had threat problems, but that was the one that stood out to me. I was like, oh my god, why do I have the Sanguinar? And someone else had the wrong person. I think a hunter actually ended up with aggro on the mage also, Capirian or Casperian. So that was a huge problem. Our warlock couldn't get it because they dropped their threat and the hunter didn't. So that was a super mess. So as long as what we would do is we'd kill the weapons, we would stand near the stage still, and then as soon as everything came up, we got into place where everyone ran back toward Thaladred for the most part, and melee stayed up to the front. Um, that phase is the hardest phase, phase 3. When all 4 things are up, once once you have that down, I think KT goes down for the most part. And I think that's kind of what we're working on now. We were able to get past uh, that phase. We were actually even able to get past all the way to the last phase. But the problem
Yeah.
is the problems all start compounding on themselves in phase 3. Because phase 3
Yeah.
wasn't totally clean, you run into issues into phase 4 that you're still trying to make up for when you get into phase 5. And like it's sort of just like this issue that snowballs until we were wiping. But I think our biggest problem, so phase 3 is all 4 of the lieutenants come up, and you have to just deal with all of them at once. So you have the warlock who's tanking the mage. You have a couple of your tanks tanking the melee guys. One, the engineer who's throwing bombs is just kind of insane. And then you want all your ranged and even some melee if they can get DPS down onto Thaladred, who's just chasing everyone down while you're trying to do this like insano fight. And they can target the people who are tanking the other mobs. So it's pretty insane. But the damage isn't incredible. There's no like if he was flame striking during this part, I think that it would be really hard. But there's nothing. If you're out of the range of the mage, if you're not in melee range of the melee mobs like Sanguinar and the engineer, and then you're moving out of the way of Thaladred, there's really no damage that is going out. So all you need to do is focus on kiting Thaladred where people can get as much DPS down on him as possible, uh, and then kill him. And once he's dead, the
Okay.
rest of the phase is very easy.
Okay, so hear me out on a healer perspective here. So I watched the video, right? And it's like, yeah, you just take him back here and then you go back and forth and back and forth. And yeah, that sounds great, right? I'm sorry. As soon as he like gets back there, that's great. But then the next person that has him is like, okay, they like maybe go to the right spot, but everybody else spreads out. They're
Yeah.
like, nah. Right. So we're never condensed. And I think that was our biggest problem is that we were
Our
never like a unit of
our DPS
people.
uptime on Thaladred in phase 3 is god awful. It's basically like people
Oh,
just kiting him out of range of all the range over and over again.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's causing like DPS to just not be that high. And we're close, like even
Oh,
not
yeah.
doing anything great, we were already like very close to having a clean phase 3. But I think like for most guilds, optimizing killing Thaladred as quickly as possible is like the hump to get over. Because after that, the other mobs are stationary. They're just
But I think
tanking.
it's positioning,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Like
it's
I think
positioning
it's
based.
yeah, it's huge positioning. And I think a lot of people focus on just like where you need to position when you get the aggro. But at the same time, like everybody needs to be in one spot and then that person needs to go to this spot. And you can't go
Yep.
through the raid because like especially initially, I think Bob experienced this.
It's not just
He
Bob,
like
but
went
yeah.
through the raid
Well,
to
and
like
I,
the
f-
back.
I feel like if you try to get them in the right spot, you do go through the raid. People just back out and get out of the
No, you
way.
don't go through the raid.
You
But
can't go through the
Watch the
I
raid.
Crix
feel like,
video.
but I feel like that would be the smarter
No,
thing.
it's not.
No,
You
but
go
it's not.
over and down.
I
Yeah.
know,
Over
I know,
and
I know,
down.
I know.
Of
I
course, it's
feel
not the
like,
smartest thing to
You
make the
don't
whole
know
raid
though.
move for you. You got to part the Red Sea with Thaladred, make all the warlocks run around. I don't
I
think
mean,
so.
it just only takes a second to get out of the way, though.
Or
No, no, no.
one
You have to
person
get way
can
out of
just
the way.
move to the side.
Yeah, it takes a second for you to go to the right.
The big thing too, the other big reason you go like this, so you pull to the right and then you go down. It's because you can time his death better that way. You kill
Yeah.
him, you kill 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 him, and then he ends up dead in the right spot. The problem is we were dragging him down fast and we had to just move him, and it's kind of like random where he dies. It wasn't a problem though. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah.
It didn't matter at all where we killed Thaladred because he immediately starts walking up back towards everybody. Like, as long as he's dead toward the back, fine. Then it's really about phase 3, how you kite him, that matters. You can pull Thaladred through the whole raid
Right.
80 times in phase 1 because it's so easy. There's nothing else to do but walk away from Thaladred and kill him.
Yeah, but you'll
Yeah,
die.
and
Only if you stand still.
we got
Yeah.
5 attempts in, and we got 2 attempts to phase 5, and there
Yeah.
were like some little things, like a fireball didn't get
Well, okay.
interrupted on one time, and that would have possibly
Well,
probably
2
been a
times
kill.
actually. We exclusively lost in phase 4 and phase 5 to people not interrupting fireballs. And that's pretty much all it came down to. Everything else, it didn't seem that crazy. I think maybe we might have had some DPS problems. The problem is once you get to phase 4, are you bringing problems from phase 3 into phase 4? And that's like, it's so hard to judge. Like, is phase 4 hard? No, but if you have Sanguinar fearing everybody as it starts and like you're still
It
trying to
is
figure out
hard.
how to kill them, that's when it becomes hard. If you go into phase 4 with all of them dead, it must be really easy. Like, it's got to be very, very easy. But
Yep.
we were having some problems, and the problems I honestly believe all stem from Thaladred DPS. Getting him down as quickly as possible allows you to quickly kill the mage, quickly kill the melee, and I think that's really what matters. But phase 4, we were having a shaman frost shock the phoenixes, and then a paladin just sort of kiting them around, so they were slowed. And then we only DPS'd the eggs when they came out, and it wasn't too bad. Honestly, like, it's not that hard to absorb a pyroblast. I died to a pyroblast one time because we didn't have enough DPS going down on the main boss. He puts on a shock barrier that has, I think, 80,000 health, and you have to break that 80,000 health, then interrupt him of the pyroblast. And if you have like a bunch of things going on, like Sanguinar still up and 2 eggs or something, then it just isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
But again,
did,
we didn't have that many attempts. Like,
and we did. I mean, the eggs never seemed to be a problem. Like, it seemed like everybody was switching, and we were
yeah,
killing them in time, so that never seemed to be a problem.
yeah, and I think maybe getting like better MCs, but even still, when we had bad MCs, it was like annoying. But I was never like, this is the reason we can't do the boss, is because people aren't using the dagger on the MCs
Right.
fast enough. It was just sort of like annoying mechanic to deal
Oh,
with.
that's another thing. We had the weapons. Like, you have to loot those pretty quick, and
Oh
it
yeah,
was hilarious. The first attempt, I had specifically been really good. Like, I took a picture of it on my phone, went over, typed it out specifically from Crix's video of what the, staff of determination or desecration, and Crix misspelled it with one E instead of an I in his video, and so none of our macros worked at the start. It was like, dang it, dude.
Well,
So
you also have to
Yeah.
talk about the fact that if you wipe, you need to re-equip your weapon. Like,
Yeah.
and
So
your
you're wearing the
offhand
legendary
weapon too.
weapons.
And your
Yeah.
offhand weapon too. I am ashamed
no, I
to
didn't
admit it.
go.
I didn't realize that I had to re-equip my offhand for like 2 of our attempts, and I was like, dang it. I've been
Guys,
just living without
item
my
rack.
knapsack.
Item rack puts all your gear on with one button.
I know, but I was just like going and just clicking the weapon back on and didn't even look over at my offhand.
I've got, as someone with 8 sets of item rack gear, you guys can
Listen,
handle.
I don't know
I
if
don't
I
even
have to
use
switch
item
on
rack.
my gear. Why would I use item rack?
That's
All right, but
here
all in all,
dying.
we
Yeah,
didn't get him down.
We didn't get him down. We got him very close. If
Very
the
close.
problem is that morning, the morning of the night we're going into Tempest Keep, if we had gotten as good as attempts as in those 5 attempts as I like that morning, I would have thought that was awesome progress. But the fact that I really thought we could have killed him, it felt like bad progress because I was like, we really could have had this. We had one more attempt to do, and Trash respawned as we were
Nah.
getting there. I think we really could have got him down on that attempt. It was a huge bummer, but we were already over raid time. We just didn't have time for another attempt after having to kill like all the trash. So we had
And we only raid 3 hours.
we only raid 3
Just to let
hours.
everybody know.
100%. You will be hearing next week how KT died. If not, I will be quitting my guild. No.
What?
I
Yeah.
fully believe, especially considering the additional gear we'll be getting in like SSC and stuff, like every little bit is gonna help, and we're so close. It's just like semantics at this point, like getting him down. You're muted?
Oh, sorry. I said we've always been a guild that needs to see it at least once.
I mean, every guild needs to see it at least once. We dropped Lady Vash in 20 attempts. Like, that's pretty good. The guilds that did it, the first day had 20 attempts in PTR. So
Yeah.
we're just doing PTR sweaty.
Yeah, KC is going to go down in 10 attempts. I'm very positive about that. And KC is a bit easier than Vash, but you definitely have to see every phase. You literally are just learning each phase. It's like one of those memory games where it's like it's like a light box and it makes a noise and you have to like hit back. It'll be like boop and you go boop. And then it makes 2 beeps and you have to hit the numbers correctly. It's like a memorization game. Like, what comes next? I stand over here. But the actual mechanics are not very difficult. Like, your individual job is not so hard you won't be able to do it. You just need to learn it, and then you need all the people to learn it. That's what it comes down to.
Yep. All right, well, we are definitely going to be running extremely long this week. We have some news to get through, so
hey, I didn't want to talk about Leo for 20 minutes, okay?
Let's move into the news. So first off in the news, if you're listening to this on Monday, then all Hallows end has come to an end. And so it's done. It was done yesterday? If that's correct. No, it was done today. Yeah, it was done today. If you're one of the few listeners that checks us out on YouTube or on Twitch, you have this weekend to possibly get your mount, try and get as many attempts in as you can. But that's all we really need to say about that. Next is a fix to spell resist in the Burning Crusade, and I had to read this over a couple times to actually understand what it was. But basically, things like the sure-footed enchant that you put on your boots, it's 5% root and root and whatever resist root, and it's not stun, but it's root and the other one.
Immobilize.
Yeah. And so basically, before this change, you were able to stack you were able to stack spell hit to actually negate that 5% or 3% of the 5%. Same with like same with un unbreakable will, which is like stun resist, and then any of the meta gems that have stun resist or root resist, those were able to be cheesed by over spell hitting on characters. And now that has been changed to where your spell hit doesn't actually factor into those things proccing. So probably wasn't used by a ton of people, but maybe if you're going against a PvE group in, with their PvE gear on in
Dang, I'm getting
arena,
rooted every time.
yeah, then you're like 5% might not have worked, but they've went ahead and changed that, and then also
Well, here's
Rogue's
the
Cloaks of
next change is really
Shadows.
important.
Yeah.
This change, everyone was really clamoring for this change, Bob. I'm sure we're all very excited. So what happened? What did they do, Bob?
They made rogues even better in PvP. So basically, Cloak of Shadows was only doing 80% resists. Now it's back up to its, what it was supposed to be, 90% resist. But anybody who's went up against a Cloak of Shadows rogue on a caster doesn't like to hear this information.
I'm a very biased person. I there's probably nothing in the world I hold more prejudice against than a rogue. And I can just imagine, and I'm so sorry for all the people who like this podcast and there's a rogue and what I'm about to just do, but I just know that this came from the hardest of QQing PvP rogues, because only a PvP rogue would notice this sort of nonsense that it feels like Cloak of Shadows is only resisting 80% of the time. Oh, not 90% of the time.
And they're
I
the
can only
sweatiest
evasion dodge.
ones that
I can
actually
only
get
evasion
data.
in Cloak of Shadows everything and live, and then cheat death, and then vanish, and
And-
then go bandage.
And then use my engineering belt, and then
and then pop my engineering belt after I cheat death. Like, oh my god, yeah, great, good. Thanks, Blizzard. Glad you're really on it. There's a threat wipe problem on Kael'Thas for 3 weeks that you knew about before you even launched it. But let's make sure rogues are better in PvP, guys. I'm just obviously this is just like a weird like. They're suggesting that they're making this change because that's how it was in the Burning Crusade. But honestly, we're so past this no changes thing. Just keep it 80%. Who cares? Forget these rogues. That's all I got.
Yeah, coming from people that don't have a rogue mage team, I'm gonna have to agree.
Yeah.
Bias in full form.
Oh yeah.
So the next one is actually, I feel embarrassed that I didn't even know that this was a thing. So Simonize, Simonize. He's a YouTuber. You should check him out. He actually found out a way to make the gnomish battle chicken do battle squawk like every time. It's perfect. So for those of you who were like me and had no idea this was a thing, battles the move battle squawk provides a 5% haste buff to all nearby party members for 4 minutes. That's huge. And now I understand why people would actually pop that in vanilla. But people were like had all kinds of theories of like when it would cast it. Like sometimes it wouldn't cast it at all. So he found out that if you summoned the gnomish battle chicken while in combat with a mob that has already performed a hostile action towards you, it will cast Battle Squawk almost immediately after summoning it. So this is a way to get a 5% haste buff for everybody in your party, which is pretty nuts.
I didn't go gnomish and make all the gnomish stuff before I went goblin engineering.
Same.
I don't really have an excuse other than I did it right as TBC came out, so I just like didn't have time or money to do it. And little did I know that it would stack. I didn't know these stacked. I think that's the thing that bugs me the most. I didn't know that you could have 5 of these on at once. And that's what people have been able to do by like, it didn't matter when it was a random proc, right? But if you can force it out, you're able to do it.
Yeah, and
For a minute, they fixed it. I think they already fixed it. For a minute, you could actually get infinite of these buffs. When people first discovered that you could
oh wow.
auto trigger it, they realized you could log out, wait for the cooldown, log back in, insta trigger it again, log out, and then just keep buffing yourself over and over again. But they fixed it so you can only get your 1 chicken buff now. So but you can
Oh
still have,
wow.
if you have 5 engineers in a group, you can still have all of them proccing it.
Well, and what sucks is it is some of the stuff you could just buy, but this is a bind on pickup item,
Yeah.
so you have to
It's
craft
one
it
of the ones
yourself.
that you're supposed to go gnomish for first, and then
And for anybody who doesn't do engineering, it's not like tailoring. You literally have to drop engineering completely to switch and work it up from 0. So that's a rough thing.
yeah. And I use goblin trinkets, so I would have to work it up twice, basically. Luckily, this is only like 230, so you don't have to work it up
Well,
like all the way.
I
And there's other
guess
gnomish things that you can get.
but do you still have to be
I think the
a
rocket
goblin for the rocket
requires.
boost?
I think it for. Oh yeah, I think you
Oh,
do.
that's a bummer because
Um,
the battle chicken doesn't require you be it. You just have to
yeah,
craft it
you just craft it
yourself.
early. I'm gonna double check, but I think that all the TBC ones, yeah, requires the goblin engineer to put on. Is a change because they didn't want people. I don't think they want people like swapping back and forth to make everything.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just kind of an interesting thing. So definitely check it out. We'll have it in the notes
I
if you're
really hope
confused.
if it ends up being like super meta, I would hope something like this gets nerfed personally. Um, just because like it's just too. It sounds like it has the potential to be like too meta. I guess is, but we'll see.
I mean, 5% haste buff is pretty big for 4 minutes. I mean, whew.
Yeah,
But hopefully we have some raiders in our guild that have it. I know at
I'll
least one
swap.
does because I saw
Hey,
a
I'll
battle
swap if the
chicken.
G Bank will pay.
All right, so now we're moving into the classic news. All right, so the classic fresh news. So they did the whole Onyxia and Molten Core test. All they really did was there's a whole blue post. We'll have it linked in the notes, but I'm not gonna just read it out because I think that's a waste of time for you and us. But the the gist of it is they basically they buffed it everything in the dungeon by 100% health and added a couple of uh old things in, like Ragnaros would do his fire thing multiple times, but they found out that, like, digging into the code, there really wasn't much changed in Molten Core. Like, I know I heard North on Countdown to Classic say something about Gar doing some weird stuff, but supposedly that just didn't exist. That must have been something he heard about on a private server and in his mind changed to was in WoW initially, but uh, they just didn't find much. So they're planning a new test, and that test actually went on, I think, today. I saw some people cleared it, but it's interesting because they're actually adding new moves now to Onyxia and to Molten Core. Like, there's a new move, Armageddon. There's a new move, Call Meteor. There's a charge move, Dark Mending.
Yeah, big heal moves.
Like Dispel Magic, Eruption, Explosion, Fireball, Volley, Inferno, Living Fallout, Magma Splash, Meteor, Summon Corehound, Summon Onyxian Warder, Teleport Spawn, VFX. Like, we don't really know what these moves do, but
Well, some of them you can obviously insinuate, but what I
yeah.
think is really cool is that it sounds like to me some of these single target fights where maybe certain classes were benefiting, like Summon Corehound might be a Magmadar ability, right? Because he's like the Core Hound boss. So it could be that instead of this being a tank and spank single target fight, now he has ads that he summons, and a different class might be the highest DPS there because I don't know, maybe a warrior can't hit both targets at the same time, depending on what the fight looks like now.
Yeah, or summon Core Hound. Like but like some bosses might just summon a Core
Yeah, just
Hound.
straight summon them. Yeah, and Onyxia Warder is probably, I mean, who knows? Onyxia might summon like something stronger than Whelps now. Instead of just Whelps coming out during the cave, maybe elites are going to be coming out while she's breathing on you, which I remember us handling breaths like they're like classic was easy, but you know, like you could die. There were some mechanics like the breath that could just wipe you all. And if there's other stuff going on, this could bring these are the sort of changes that can bring a level of difficulty that I think people will have a hard time with. I think it requires more than just more health or more damage. It requires more new mechanics, and this is what they're doing.
Yeah, and it's interesting for me because, this is what everybody always was like, "Oh, I don't think they could do it," but I don't know that I'm in that same camp as I was prior. Like with them bringing Holly in, I think this could actually be something that's really cool where they're actually changing it up, and it's going to be a different game. It's not going to be what we lived through in
Well, and
Classic Fresh.
I think that's the important thing, right? Is I don't think that they can do it, but they can do it if they're going to do a season where this is just like a temporary measure. If they release Classic WoW and they were like, "Yeah, this is like what Classic WoW is forever now," it'd be like, "Well, that's weird." But the fact that they're able to try things out in seasons, you don't have they don't have to get it 100% right. Right? Like they can mess
Yeah.
up a little bit. They can have a weak phase where maybe they should have done something different because it's gonna be iterative. They can change things next time around. So I think that that is an important part. Like I don't know, like if there was only one version of Classic Plus where any change they put in is permanent, I can see why people would still be worried. But hey, it's a season of mastery. Whatever, you know, you know what you're signing up for now.
Yeah, it's just I mean, it's interesting. It really is, and I think it's going to be something. We hit that email about seasons, them changing stuff out like each season. I think that this is just the beginning. I think that they're going to start adding things to BWL and adding
Oh yeah,
things to AQ,
but
and
I want this without beta tests.
yeah,
I want them to release Season of Mastery, and you have to go blind into Lucifron, and suddenly Lucifron's ads are like start dark mending him, and they start they explode on death, and you're like, what's happening? You have to like actually learn. Think about, I mean, just think about everyone will make like videos again, like new boss guides would come out about like here's how to do this boss now, and I think that that's so cool. It promotes like a whole new level of community that because you won't have the knowledge already there, you have to band together, you have to join discords or something and figure out like, whoa, no one can kill Rag, like how do we do it? And that's cool, but the more you let them people beta test, and I understand why they're doing it, but the more you let people beta test, the less cool it gets.
yeah, and I think you're exactly right. We know why they're doing it. It's because this is the first time they've done something like this, and then in the
I mean,
future they might be able to do that. You know what I mean?
yeah, if they have something broken, people will be more upset than allowing a beta test. That's like that's just how it goes.
And
Yeah,
then
they don't want to put.
yeah, the race to world first could actually be exciting if this isn't tested and there's new stuff in. It would actually be a true race to world first instead of everybody. It was definitely cool to see phase 2 and how they had pre-planned to use their rocket boots, parachute cloaks to skip all the trash and everything. That was neat, but I think it would have been neater to see really good guilds wiping because none of like that's what sucks about all these streamers and the people that are really good and on the cutting edge. They don't stream their PTR, which is stupid. We don't get to like actually see the struggle, trials and tribulations. Like I think that's why people enjoy us talking about Raid, is because they don't get that from them. They just get to see them enact the perfect thing. And I think it'd be neat to see those people work through things.
I mean, you can tell that Blizzard knows this to some extent because think about how they tested Nax. with tiny short windows of boss fights where you were insanely buffed, so you couldn't really tell like how difficult the fights were going to be when it actually came out. Like Blizzard knows that it's more interesting that way because they did that for Nax. But they are not doing it for TBC anymore. They're just like, hey, free reign. Go ahead and kill all the bosses you want. And it's like, it's sad. But I think it's one of those things where you just have to like look internally. I'm having a blast in our TBC progression, but if I was thinking about how like, oh, this guild's 10 out of 10, this guild's 10 out of 10, like it's easy to get drained from that mentality. But if all you think about is like how sick our Vash kill was, how close we are to KT, you can have fun. But yeah, like when you see that, like, oh, this guild's already down at 10 times on PTR, it's like, okay. Like,
Did we lose Mel?
I don't know.
Mel, you there? Hold on, pause the podcast for a second. Talk to chat.
I'll keep everyone entertained. Hi, everyone. I've got nothing to say. Sorry. Huge error on my part. I was confident when I went into this, but I stopped being confident very quickly. Hey, we're
Holy
back.
crap. Okay, so Mel's literally asleep in bed.
No way.
Yeah, she's had a long week of working
Whoa.
extremely long hours, and we just took it out of her with the raid talk.
She made a decision at some point. She was like, it's time.
Yep. Oh, that's hilarious. All right, so it's just me and Yep here for the remainder.
What? We're almost done.
Yep.
We had a pre-recorded discussion, so.
Oh man. All right, so that's,
we got to season of mastery and Mel went to bed. I feel like that's a statement.
That kind of is. It kind of is. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Oh, all right. Well, she just works herself too hard. But all right, so
she works much harder than either of us.
Yep, definitely. All right, so let's move on to the next stuff. So, in week 4 of the open beta, they've done a few more changes. Okay, these aren't Molten Core Onyxia based. These are many groups of guard NPCs that were removed from Alterac Valley in patch 1.11 have been restored to Season of Mastery. How do you feel about this?
I think that's probably fine, right?
I know a lot of people want that, but literally I just went Alterac Valley just to like farm otter. Like I really don't like that BG.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think they're just trying to get rid of some of the cheesiness involved because it is such a large-scale battleground that maybe that this is just like a big deal. I personally don't care at all. I think that PvP, unless we've got some like, I don't know, serious changes. I know we're about to talk about PvP changes, but I don't know. Classic PvP is just now that I've experienced TBC PvP, it's kind of hard to retroactively have any like major interest. Like, ooh, Alterac Valley is going to be better in Classic, and it's like, TBC is so fun, and like the way you gear in TBC and how it's its own progression. It's hard to beat that with just Alterac Valley changes.
Yeah, and in Classic or in Vanilla, it's so much about globaling people, whereas Resilience changes that in TBC and just makes it a much more interactive thing where,
I just don't see PvP as like a main draw of Vanilla, except for the people who it is a main draw for, right? And I would assume that they like this. It is what it is.
Yep. If you're a class that's good at globaling, you'll probably enjoy it. Like so. All right, so Blackrock Depths. So just to let everybody know, they've done a thing to try and combat the Blackrock Depths pickpocketing farm that rogue bots would do. And what they've done is it's I forget what it's actually called. They don't actually say it here, but
yeah, it's like a debuff that you get right as you pickpocket.
Like after 10 or 15 pickpockets, it will put a hour-long or actually it's 30-minute long debuff on your rogue. Basically makes it so you just loot pocket lint from that point on. And this is their way of trying to combat the bots. It is a bummer for the rogues that actually did it manually along with coffer runs and like it. I mean, it was kind of a cool farm for them. It wasn't very big, but it kind of sucks for that. But at the same time, it will cut down the amount of gold, raw gold going into the economy.
Yeah, if you're getting rid of like the mage stuff, I see this as like a natural follow-up course, right? It's not exactly one for one because of course like the mage boosting is a big problem, but just mage bots gold grinding in instances is a problem too. So like this follows, and I think it's good. I think anything to combat bots, most people are going to be okay with.
Yeah.
Especially raw gold farms are so annoying. Big problem with inflation when mages are like doing the mages would all do the plants in Dire Maul East. I forget what they're called now. But the little thornling guys that you can just
Yeah,
AoE down, and you
paladins that
just
do
make
those too.
yeah, you can just make even a priest could solo it. And it's like you can just get so much raw gold, and if there's a bot in there, you're just the inflation's nuts.
Yep, and I know the rogues that did this legitly are going to be like, "Hey, why don't you just regulate and ban the bots?" But like maybe they can't do that. So, I mean, this is at least something in the direction that's going to help discourage that behavior. And,
Yeah,
you know, you gotta be thankful
it's
for
worth it.
what you get. Okay, so then also they put the many adjustments have been made in Molten Core and Onyxia's lair. I wish I would have checked out some of those VODs today. I could maybe talk about them next week,
Yeah,
but
next week we'll be able to talk more about them.
yeah, I'd love to see like what summoned core hounds and stuff like that. So that'll be pretty interesting. And then the next one is the PvP honor system has been adjusted to accelerate the rate in which players rank up. Now, I didn't really understand this 20% to 40% change. Do you understand it? Because I didn't rank it all in Classic or.
Yeah, so it has to do with the fundamental way of how ranking works. People have a misunderstanding where they think that like there is a percentage of like where you fall in your bracket that you'll go up a percentage based on it's not how it works. Depending on where you are in your bracket, you're given an amount of rank points. And depending on your total rank points, it determines what rank you are. And then depending on I don't know the exact numbers, but it'll be like bracket, you know, 13 to 14 will have a range of 2,000 to 3,000 rank points. And if you're at the bottom of the bracket, you'll get 2,000. If you're at the top of the bracket, you'll get 3,000. And it's a sliding scale of how many points you get each week. So all they're doing is increasing what that number is that you get each week. So you actually don't have to, you can pass that threshold you need a lot easier to get to the next rank. So that means like every week that you go really hard in, you're gaining way more than you were before. So yeah, it's like a little confusing if all you do is look at like what bracket you're in, but when you think about it in rank points, and if you look at like spreadsheets where you calculate how long it'll take to get to Grand Marshal, they'll do it in rank points. So like all you have to do is change what that number like you just multiply those rank points by 20 to 40%, and you'll have an idea of how many weeks it will take. But it's a good change. I'm a huge proponent. I think if you want if you really want to make this like an accessible experience, I just think getting rid of losing any honor is all you really have to do. Like losing rank, get rid of it entirely, and like you're good to go. Like it's way more accessible. You still have to go really hard in any given week that you're trying to rank up in. It just lets you take a break. The fact
Yeah,
that you're not allowed to take a break is the only real problem I have with the PvP system.
yeah, I mean, you could just be like, okay, well, this week I'm taking a complete break. Next week I'm going hard. This week I'm taking a complete break. Next week I'm going.
Yep.
You could do it every other, and you're still going to get. I mean, yes, the super sweaties are going to get the weapons the quickest, and the weapons are huge. But it would be a way, for instance, if this was the way, if what you're suggesting was the way in vanilla, I would have at least done one out of every 3 weeks hardcore, and then by the time we hit late BWL, I probably would have had the weapons or
Yeah. And
early AQ.
because like it's just anytime you play an MMO, I can never be this focused. Like one day I want the winter spring mount, and the next day I want to go do this and go farm gold. The fact that in order to PvP in vanilla, you have to be like, all I'm gonna do is this for weeks and weeks and weeks and months and months and months. what's the point? Especially when some people were cheesing it anyway by going to smaller servers. They were cheesing it by like cohorting with like the people at the top to like limit how much honor everyone's getting. Like people are already gaming the system.
And creating hundreds, if not thousands, of bots to get 15
Yeah.
kills.
Yeah, that was a cool time. So I think just this is a benefit, but I think fundamentally changing how it works is just easier. We're working adults now. Like we can't give 3 months to a PvP grind. I can give 3 months to a PvP grind over a year,
Yep.
but not in a row.
Yep. But yep, so that's those are some of the changes they're doing, and who knows if they're going to keep it going through. But in the last set of news, Season of Mastery is coming. It's coming hard, fast. You'll be able to reserve your name on November 11th. So if you want to reserve a name, get to it. And then it launches November 16th, which I feel like the best launch date would have been when, what's it called? The Bear Mount came out. What's that raid?
Zul'Aman. However, I'll be Mel for a moment. You have to understand that we're not the audience of this. Even though you want it out in Zul'Aman, there are people who want Classic Fresh right now, and that is who is being targeted by this. So fundamentally, but yeah, I'm gonna have some serious FOMO. I just don't have time to put any real effort in starting in a couple of weeks for this. And that's like, I'm just gonna have FOMO. I'm gonna be like, everyone's doing that, and that's cool. I'm over here playing TBC, can't even get a heroic group together, and everyone's running Dead Mines without me.
I know. I think I am gonna do like just a hardcore character, just at least in the beginning, just to experience it. But if that
Yeah, I mean,
hardcore character dies, I'm done.
I'll play. What day is the 16th? Is that a Tuesday like they normally do? It's a Saturday. Okay, perfect. So Saturday, maybe I'll play that Saturday and Sunday and like see what's up, you know? Like that's more along the lines
Wait, no, it's a Tuesday.
oh, I'm looking at October. That makes sense. Yeah, okay, so it is a Tuesday. Okay, not cool. I'll play that weekend. I'll be way behind everyone else, but I'll play that weekend. Like, to me, that's like way too against us. We raid that night.
Yeah.
How are you gonna release it on a raid night? You know? Oh well.
Yeah,
That's okay. I understand. It's
but
not for us.
either way, it'll be neat to watch it. There's tons of people that are going to stream it. Like it's going to be a neat thing to follow, and we'll, even if we're
It'll
not
be
playing it hardcore, we'll continue to cover it as a podcast. So you definitely will need your clips and VODs sent in to us so that we can see what it's like. So to help us out. But yeah,
yeah.
that's going to end our news and send us into discussion. Okay, so everybody who's watching live in chat and anybody who's on YouTube, I'm going to play the pre-recorded thing at the end. We're going to do the show closing where, we do the add-on of the week, and then actually we're going to skip add-on of the week this week.
Again.
Yep. I mean, it's been epically long. And then once we close out, I will put the VOD on, and then the actual stream will end right after the VOD ends, and that gets us out of here quicker. So with that being said, I'm going to do this as for me. All right, we're back, and thank you to Naismith and Harskar for taking their time. And Harskar had a lot of great questions. I think it was a really good idea to bring him along for that. Thank you, Naismith, for all the tips. Definitely helped us this week, and yeah.
And I wasn't there for content. I'm throwing that out there. You probably didn't hear much from me. I was there for raid purposes to hear about what we needed for raid. I was eating dinner. I'm like, oh yes, tell us more.
Yep, and
we really appreciate that info.
I was trying to ask questions I thought were pertinent, but the best questions definitely came from our raid leader Harskar. So thank you to him for taking time out of his day to come on that, and I think it did help us quite a bit going into there. So that being said, episode's too long, no add-on of the week this week, send us in your week auras or add-ons because we need some more content for that to help us actually bring good ones to you. All right? Yep. Oh, no, I need to do closing. All right. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at WC Reloaded. And you can follow the Mash Those Buttons Network at the Mash Network. If you want to send us an email and have your email possibly read on the show, it's WCRpodcast@gmail.com. That's WCRpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to interact with the host or get Yip's soundbite for the Alliance, you can do so by joining mash.gg/Discord. Ratings and reviews help the podcast out a ton. iTunes, warcraftradio.com, these help us tremendously, and we read them on the show, and they help us with Google searches. Also, the best way, like I always say, is to tell your friends about the podcast. Yell it out in Walmart. Hey, everybody, Google Warcraft Reloaded. It all helps. So try to keep doing that and keep helping us out, and we'll keep bringing you TBC and WoW Classic content. All right, Ryan, where can we find you?
Hi, you can find me on Twitter at CognitivePit or on YouTube, youtube.com/CognitivePit.
Awesome. And Mel isn't here to say, oh, you can't find me anywhere. So, unfortunately, you can find me on Twitter at Blazin_Bob. That's BLAZZIN_BOB. You can find me on Twitch, sometimes streaming at twitch.tv/BlazzinBob. All right. This was a crazy episode. I can't believe we actually killed Mel in the middle of it.
I'm trying to think back when it happened exactly.
She was like, okay, we're going on to the news. She was probably just like, I'm going to rest my eyes for a second, and then gone.
Oh, yeah. It was definitely like, I'm going to get a drink. And then she, like, looked at the bed.
Yep.
And was like, just 30 seconds. Just
going to rest my eyes.
Yeah, I've been there. I almost do that all the time. For Raid, a lot of the time, I try to fit in like a 40-minute nap, and I'm like, what time is it? Did I miss Raid?
Oh,
okay.
That's the worst when you wake up and you're like, whoa, what's going on?
Yeah, like I really hope it's not tomorrow morning.
Yeah, you're like home at 2, and you're like, oh, I think I could take a quick nap, and then you wake up at 9, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm stuck. All right, guys. Well, we're for anybody watching live, we're gonna send you into the talk with Naismith. Thank you guys so much for hanging out, and let me go ahead and switch that over, and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
All right. Okay, everybody say hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Perfect. All right. Looks like our levels are good. All right. I'm just gonna bring us into it, and then we'll get going. All right. So we have me and Ryan here, and we're joined by Harskar, our guild leader of Vargflocken. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. And we are also joined by friend of the show, Naismith. How you doing?
Doing great. Great to be back.
Good deal. Good deal. All right. So this is going to be a thing where we just recently dropped Lady V, and we have that now on farm, and we are turning our sights to Kael'Thas, and Naismith offered us a helping hand and to just give us some tips and tricks that make the fight a lot easier. So we thought this would be great content for you guys out there, and great content for us to help us drop it quicker. So with that being said, Naismith, do you want to start us off?
Sure, I can start us off. Kael'Thas is a marathon of a fight. It's 5 phases. Several of the phases are not terribly difficult, but the transitions between phases can really trip some people up. First thing you need to know is you do get legendary weapons during this fight. They are very useful, and they are pretty much required to kill the boss.
Yeah, I saw that. It was recommended that you make macros to equip it so you're not trying to,
Yes.
fuddle around.
And pretty much a lot of them have like use effects, like the staff prevents certain like loss of your character control, like stuns, which is very useful. And the hunter one actually produces legendary bow, like arrows as well, to go with the bow. Um, let's just get started with phase one. Now, there are four mini bosses that go with Kael'Thas. It's named Thaladred, Sanguinar, Capernian, and Telonicus. You will likely memorize these names because you will hear the boss say them over and over and over again.
Real quick, just to interject, from what I saw from left to right, number one is the far left.
Is
The
Thaladred.
second one that you kill is far right.
Yes.
The third one that you kill is right of center, and the fourth one you kill is left of center. Is that correct?
That's true.
Okay,
That's
cool,
the order
cool.
that's the order they come out in during phase one. You fight them one at a time. The first one, Thaladred, just walks towards. He will focus someone and walk towards them, pretty much ignoring all else. If you do over 10,000 threat to him while he is fixated, you can pull aggro during this. So be careful. You don't want to pull aggro at an inopportune time, because if he melees you, you're fucked. You're dead pretty much no matter what. Um, so what you want to do is you want to kite him around the room, but you want to do it in a way so that people can stand in the middle of the room and get a lot of good uptime on him. Because it's very dangerous to have your melee on this guy, because he will turn around and just one shot people.
So who's kiting him?
It's random. He randomly fixates one person, and then he wanders around the room, and it changes about every 12 to 15 seconds. So I would recommend, since you are going to wipe on this fight, I would recommend taking some time the first time you're in there, have people learn how to kite him around a circle, like not a circle, like in a long oval. Um, you want him to die towards the end where you guys entered the room. The player characters enter the room. It is like phase one is all about setting up for success in phase three. So this means we have to kill bosses very carefully and like in certain places. That way, we have an easier time. So once you've killed Thaladred, Lord Sanguinar pops up. This guy is you need to have a, just out of curiosity, what is your guys' tanking situation like? What tanks do you use?
We have one of each.
Okay, that's wonderful. Our warrior tanks this guy because he can stance the fear pretty easily, because it's a 1.5 second cast, so you should be able to catch it pretty much every time. All he does is an AoE fear. Other than that, he's a tank and spank. It's easy. You can all your ranged can outrange the fear just by being more than 30 yards away. So it's not hard to like completely negate this. Now, what you want to do is you want to take him, and as you are looking at the stage where they are all standing to begin with, you want to tank him across to the far left. Um, you put him over there because his AOE fear can hit everyone during phase three, and there's no way to negate it other than Tremor Totems and Will of the Forsaken. Although you're Alliance, aren't you? So,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
so never mind about that. I can't believe I'm a fucking collaborator.
So we have a shaman for every group, so we can tremor, and then
you can
we have a few
tremor.
fear words. Yeah.
You're handing gear to the enemy.
Technically, yes. But you tank him to the far left, off the platform. Leave him there. It's like, don't worry about him. He's like probably the least important guy in the in phase three. Um, Now, Capernian is the next one that's going to pop. This is the woman. She is a caster. Now, she needs to be tanked probably by a warlock. In fact, only by a warlock is what I would say. Some we don't bother like respecing to like a Soul Link spec for this. I just tank it as Affliction and it's fine.
So would you say it's better for enough because we have Affliction and Destro, but like for Leo we use a Destro lock and not the Affliction lock. Is the Affliction lock better, or would it be better to have a Destro?
I just did it because I like to have control of stuff like that. Since I'm raid leading, like it's a difficult. Like I know I'm gonna do the right thing, hopefully. So I would honestly put, as long as they have over 10k health, I would put probably your lowest DPS warlock there. Just because it's going to be you want as absolutely much DPS on Thaladred as possible in phase 3. So just put your lowest DPS warlock there, have him click off salvation, get threat. It's not too difficult. I'd maybe have a misdirect for him.
I assume using Searing Pain a lot, right?
Yes, you spam Searing Pain. Now, there are a couple things you have to worry about from Capernian. One, no one can be within melee range of her, and I do mean no one. Like all hunter pets, no. All melee, no. They sit back and just twiddle their thumbs. Um, if you get in close to her, she starts spamming an arcane explosion that slows you and knocks you around the room. So there is absolutely no point in DPSing her as a melee. The warlock gets threat on her, but they also need to be far enough away to avoid her con flag. Her con flag is going to hit someone and puts a nasty dot on them and causes them to just wander like disoriented for, I think it's 8 seconds. So you really don't want that to hit your tank. So the way you counter this is a lot of people use their prot paladin to stand usually about 25 to 30 yards away from from Capernian, and that guy will just like soak all the con flags, and he's easily healable. There are several weak auras you can get, and do you guys use weak auras in your guild?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if you can provide those, like I could put links in the show notes too for them.
Okay, I can do that. There's just one that's very simple. It's Capernian rangefinder, like her conflag range. Use that. Your warlock needs to be outside of the conflag range, but your paladin, if you do our strategy, should be in there. Now, getting snap threat on Capernian can be an issue because you want her to stand pretty much exactly where she is. So what you do is, what I do is I just soul burn, and then to get initial threat, I get misdirected, and so I run. And while I'm getting misdirected, I run out of conflag range, and just start searing pain her. And then ranged comes in, we kill her, we move on to Telonicus. Now, Telonicus is he's the engineer. The big thing, we have our guardian druid pick him up. We put him right next to Sanguinar to the left.
Well, hold on. What do you mean by guardian druid?
It's a feral druid.
Okay.
A bear druid.
Guardian's a retail thing. It's what they changed the tank druid spec to later on in the game.
I have not played.
Okay.
I have not played retail since Legion. I don't know why my brain went to Guardian Druid. That's very bizarre. We have our Feral Druid tank him. We tank him near Sanguinar to the left because in phase 3 we want to get cleave going for our melee. So blade flurries, all sorts of stuff like that. All he does is he does melee and he throws dynamite. So you want your melee to stay as far away from him as possible because the splash damage from the dynamite can really hurt. The other thing he does, and this is the most important thing that you need to worry about, is he puts what's called remote toy debuff on people. What that does is for 1 minute, it stuns people periodically. There's no way to predict it, no way to deal with it. You just have to deal with it. Now, there are several classes that can do things to get it off of them. Rogues can Cloak of Shadows it off. Paladins can Divine Shield. You cannot Blessing of Protection it off, but you can Divine Shield it off. You can also Ice Block it off. If a tank gets that debuff, I would strenuously advise you not go into phase 2 until you get that done. And just wait for it to come off. Sit there. It's not fun, but you really don't want to have your tank getting periodically stunned during the next phase. So once you've get him in place, tank him, DPS him down, make sure no one important has the debuff, you push on to phase 2. All right, do you have any questions over phase 1 while we're here?
Well, like, how do you push it to phase 2?
You kill them.
Okay,
You kill all
okay.
4 of the...
So you would hold DPS if you wanted to, like, wait.
Yeah.
Okay.
For phase 1, a couple questions I have. So I haven't seen much about it, but on Thaldred, the first guy, is there a duration or like a window after the new fixation that melee can go and attack, or is it?
There is.
Okay.
Like, but that's going to be like on your melee to feel it out.
Right.
Like right when, because he can sometimes what he'll do is he'll once his fixation is over, he will target someone new, walk to them for about 3 seconds, and then he'll target someone else, and then fixate that guy for like the 12 seconds.
Okay,
Now,
yeah, I wasn't sure. I think some raids are just like, it's not worth it, just stay out melee, and then I've seen some raids who try to get as much in as they can.
Yes. We tend to let I tend to let our melee go in and use their best judgment, and then we just sigh and scoff at them if they die. So I mean, use your best judgment. Like, let them feel it out, see if they feel like it's appropriate.
Yeah,
Or
you have to train melee through social humiliation as they die.
If they haven't already been.
Yeah, if they haven't already.
And then also on the caster boss, the Astromancer, I can't remember her name, but
Capernian.
Do you know how much the conflag hits for? I've seen some VODs of groups putting their Shadow Priest in instead of a tank, just because Shadow Priests have lower range, I assume, to keep up debuffs and stuff like that.
Yes. That's one of the issues you have with Shadow Priests, and I was actually going to get to that in phase 3 because some guilds use Shadow Priests in a different way than we do. But it's very dangerous to put your Shadow Priest too close to them.
Okay.
Because they can't. The conflag can hit for, like, it can easily kill someone if they're not healed. So yeah, just keep an eye on conflag, and like getting through phase 1. While I've already sat and talked here about it for almost what feels like 10 minutes, it's actually the easiest part of the fight. Hopefully it won't take you, like, it didn't take my guild, it took us barely any attempts to get through that. Any other questions before we move on to phase 2?
Out of
I think I'm pretty good on
curiosity,
phase 1. Yeah.
how many attempts did it take to down Lady Vash?
We haven't downed Vash yet.
Oh, damn.
Got him.
I was just like, because I feel like we did 20, and I feel like that was a good number. So, sorry, I was just trying to brag for our guild just a little bit.
Bob's trying to fluff us a little bit.
Hey, if you're not for yourself, who can you be for? All right, so phase 2 and begins pretty much like 5 seconds after you kill Telonicus, the final guy. Phase 2, he summons weapons up. There is a staff, a mace, a dagger, a sword, a shield, a two-handed axe, and a bow. Now, what you have to do is get control of them pretty much immediately. We have our the bow needs to be tanked facing away. We have our do you guys have a boomkin?
We do.
We have our boomkin do that just because their DPS doesn't depend on a pet. Some guilds use a hunter to do it, but you just want to face that away from the raid, because it will multi-shot, and that's quite a bit of raid damage that you just don't need to deal with. So face that away, and then eventually you move to that. But the bow is a lot like Capernian. You don't want any melee near it. If someone gets in melee range with it, it starts blinking around the room, and it becomes very difficult to deal with. So yeah.
Hey, side question: is there any reason to ever bring melee to anything in the Red
Yeah.
Crusade?
Yes. Melee is actually very useful in this fight.
It's good to hear because so far it's been dismal.
All right. So, what you do next? Getting control of these weapons. It sounds more complex than it actually is. You just like have your paladin stand in the middle, tank as many as he can, pretty much get initial aggro on everything. We have our warrior take the two-handed axe out, um, because it whirlwinds, and that will just insta give people if
Okay,
they get caught in it.
so I've been watching VODs. I've heard two different schools on this. Some people say keep the axe in, and some people say take the axe out.
Well, what you can do is if what we do is we take it out, let it have its first whirlwind, then we bring it back in so it gets hit with all the AOE. Then if it AOE's again, we just keep it stunned.
Okay, so we're basically trying to AOE these weapons down.
Yes. Now, what's going to happen is you need to have usually a mage or a shaman of some kind interrupt the staff. So the staff run because the staff is a caster. It'll run in and be easily picked up by the paladin tank. We have our druid tank the sword and the shield because those can do quite a bit of damage, and they actually have quite a bit of HP as well. Um, so he just keeps those right in the AOE. They don't do any like AOE damage, so just go to town on those. We also have our rogues assigned to interrupting the staff once it's in the group, and interrupt the mace because the mace will heal. So you need to keep those interrupted. Um, they don't have a lot of HP.
Is Curse of Tongues worth it on the ones you
No,
need to interrupt?
no, absolutely not.
Okay.
You just want to do as much damage as possible. Like we usually wait all of 5 to 6 seconds for a threat to get established. I'm usually tossed since I have the malediction tossing out like cursive elements, and then we just start blowing stuff up. You have a minute 30 to kill all the weapons. Now, they're going to die at irregular rates because they all have different HP and different armor values. Like the shield has a shit ton of HP, and it is like it's like it has more armor. Like I think that's logical. But the shield also has a shield spike, so it's kind of dangerous for melee to do too much to it. So our melee concentrates on the staff, the mace, the sword, dagger, and then the two-handed axe. But the two-handed axe is obviously it's dangerous to be next to because it whirlwinds so much. Once you have like 3 or 4 of them down, you need to have people start equipping the weapons as they get down because they will despawn and people can miss them. So like call it out, say, hey guys, get your weapons, put them on, equip them. They give really good buffs. Like the dagger for that the rogues are going to equip the sword and the dagger. Oh, and if you have like a fury warrior, he'll do the same.
And these are like it's not like just one per, like everybody can grab it, right?
You can grab pretty much all the weapons that I think your character can use.
Okay.
Like we have since we have a boomkin tanking the bow, and that's pretty far away from where the staff drops. We have a hunter loot the bow and then just go trade it to him. You can do that. It's pretty easy to handle. So um, let's see here. Once you've started getting them equipped, you should have anywhere like when in phase 2, we usually have about anywhere from 15 to 30 seconds to spare, just sitting there waiting for phase 3 to start. But phase 3 is where this fight starts to get really intense, we'll say. This transition from phase 2 to 3 is pretty much one of the first big roadblocks of this fight. There are several things that you have to worry about, like threat drops and all that, but we're going to get to that soon. Do you have any questions about phase 2 before we move on?
I think phase 2 is pretty clear. I guess other than picking up weapons, do you have a general amount of people picking up the sword for the MC breaks, or is it just anybody who can use it?
It's the dagger that,
or sorry, the dagger.
breaks. Yeah, we have make sure to have all our hunters get it, because they can wing clip, and that will break the MC. Like, they just have the dagger in their main hand.
So it's important for hunters to have the full dagger
Yes.
skill too, huh?
Yes, you want everyone to have dagger skill. That's going to be breaking MCs. Like, what's your melee situation like? What do you guys usually run?
It's a little bit of a mess, but we have either
It's
one
just
or
the
two rogues. Yeah, either one or two rogues, and an enhancement.
Rogues are super useful in this fight.
We have a ret too.
Oh, ret can't use a dagger, but they can use the two-handed axe, so that's fun. But yeah, you want a lot of people to have the daggers, because breaking MCs in phase 4 is very, very important, but we'll get to that in just a little bit. All right, now on to phase 3. This is when you get to fight all 4 of the mini bosses at the same time, and you have I think it's 2 minutes to do this. So what you need to have happen is, we've killed Thaladred, the guy that just randomly fixates at the back, for a good reason, because we need to have the first thing you have to deal with is the threat wipe mechanic. This is a very annoying thing. What happens is, if you are too far away when the bosses are resurrected, they won't drop threat from when they were killed before. So if someone's too far away, one of the advisors will just run and focus them, and then everyone's positioning is wrong. It's really annoying. So what you want to do is have pretty much everyone gathered fairly near where they need to be, like fairly near like the bottom of the like the stage-ish area that they have. When they're resurrected, everyone goes to their spots immediately. Now, tanking Telonicus and Sanguinar, they were killed fairly near each other to the left of the stage. We have our Paladin and Druid, tank them over there. This way, the warrior tank is free to do a very specific task, but we'll get to that in a bit. Our melee goes over to those two and just wails away, kills them as fast as they possibly can. Something that you need to add, though, is you need one of your hunters to go over there and DPS those two down, because the hunter puts a debuff on the with the legendary bow. It will put a debuff on those guys that they take 25% additional damage from melee. I think it's 25. It might be less than that. But that's very important, because you need to get these guys down as fast as possible. So assign one of your hunters over there. He'll boost the damage of all your melee by quite a bit. Have them cleave as much as possible, but you're not always going to be able to do that, because the fixating guy is going to be wandering around, and he can fixate your tanks, and it's really annoying when he does that. So those two bosses, Sanguinar is still going to AoE fear, so drop Tremor Totems pretty much on cooldown. The tank for that one should be the Paladin, because the Paladin can get the legendary shield. That has if you use that, you're immune to fear. The fear should never be an issue for the Paladin tank. The Druid's going to tank the Telonicus. He still puts on the remote toy debuff, which periodically stuns people, but if you have the staff, the legendary staff, if you use it like a trinket, it will not let you get stunned by that. So we can completely ignore that. It's advised that the druid picks up the legendary staff as well, since they can equip that along with their weapons and give all the melee the protection debuff, or the protection buff. Sorry. Now let's talk about Thaladred. This is the guy that randomly fixates people. All of your melee or all of your ranged need to be on this guy, and they need to DPS him as fast as humanly possible. We have our warrior tank equip the dagger and attack him, because the dagger does a similar thing to what the bow does, and that it boosts spell damage. So you attack him. We have our warrior do that as he puts the debuff on, gets as much uptime on it as possible. We have people kite him as best they can, so that you can DPS him down as quickly as possible. The thing you really need to do is work on kiting him properly, so uptime is as best as you can get it. God, I hear myself repeating. God damn it. This is pretty much where your phase 3 will live and die, is if you can get Thaladred down quickly. Once you get him down, ranged goes to Capernian, which is the mage, and they just DPS her down as fast as they can. You really have to push your DPS as hard as you can in this phase, because you want maximum one of these advisors or mini bosses up when the boss becomes active. After a minute 50 or 2 minutes, phase 3 ends, no matter how many bosses are still up, and Kael'Thas becomes active. So the reason we have our prot warrior just dealing with Thaladred and putting the debuff on is so that he, no matter what, can always be there to pick up Kael'Thas immediately. Now, before we get out of phase 3, do you guys have any questions?
I've got.
Go ahead, Bob.
My one question is, like, once you put on the weapons, like, they don't disappear, right? Like, you just have the
No.
weapon for the. So you should make a macro that equips the weapon and does the use on the weapon as well, so that you could just use that same button to use the use whenever it's up. Correct?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Very much so.
Right, Harskar.
So you stressed like the damage on this phase is pretty, like the demand is pretty high. Is this generally when you would use lust?
This is
Imagine.
this is always when we
Okay.
lust, yes.
And then also, do you have people hold like 2-minute and CD trinkets on phase 2 to use them on this phase?
No, we generally let people use those on phase 2.
Okay.
If you pop them right at the beginning of phase 2, they are up pretty soon. They should be up when a bloodlust is up.
All right, that makes sense.
Phase 3. So yeah, there's no point in saving them for that, just because the time difference. But oh, sorry. Go ahead. Any other questions?
No, I'm good. That's it for me.
Yeah, like I'm gonna like I phase 3 is where you're gonna have. That's where we had our most wipes, was on phase 3. Not that many, but yeah, it's tough. The transition to phase 4, if you can get that down, you pretty much have the fight in the bag. Now, not completely, but you have most of the fight down if you can get that. Phase 4 is when Kael is active. Now, he immediately, you need to have someone there to pick him up, and you also should have someone there to interrupt, because his fireballs do a shit ton of damage, and you want to have as few of them go through as possible. So if you guys have 2 rogues, this is a great, like, it's good to have them there and just have them coordinate their kicks. And if something bad happens, an enhanced shaman can earth shock it, mages can counterspell it. Yeah, do whatever you can. Now, at the start of phase 4, you'll clean up whatever advisors are left, or the mini bosses are left. Hopefully, just 1. Ideally, 0. you're going to start having phoenixes spawn randomly. Now, the phoenixes are annoying to deal with. We have our Prot Pally kind of kite them. But to help with that, we also have our Elemental Shaman frost shocking them, because just having them move slowly through a consecrate makes it so much easier for him to get threat. You need to have all your people be aware. Like, don't stand in them because they hellfire and they kill themselves pretty much. Sometimes you'll have to help them along due to some timing issues, but that's the first thing you're going to notice. Next, Kael does flame strikes. They are big, obvious, and should never kill anyone. But they do a ton of. It does a ton. It's non-survivable if you stand in it. So it's a large, moving, like, orange circle. So don't stand in that. Other than that, let's see. This is where the Kael starts to mind control people. Now, the way to get rid of this is for people to be hit with the dagger, the legendary dagger. This is why, if you have rogues, they can easily just walk up and shiv people with the dagger, and that usually immediately gets them out of it. With the sword actually gives them a movement speed bonus, so they can move quickly to find people, but it's still quicker if you have, like, your hunters in, like, the main group of people. They can just wing clip or raptor strike if they want to not put a movement debuff on people. That can move the MC really quickly. Getting those MCs away very quickly is the most important thing in phase 4. The only other thing that Kael does is what's called a shock barrier. This is where he puts a shield up that absorbs 50,000 damage or more than that, and he starts casting Pyroblast. Now, one Pyroblast does like 60,000 to 80,000 damage. It's completely non-survivable, except for the fact that you have the legendary shield, which gives you like 100,000 damage shield. So you use that. You have your DPS down the shock barrier as fast as possible and interrupt the Pyroblast. You should be able to get it down before a Pyroblast goes off, but if you don't, use the shield pretty much no matter what. Absorb the first one and then interrupt the next Pyroblast, and he goes on to his normal rotation after that. Your DBM, if you guys use DBM, don't you?
Yep.
Okay. DBM should it'll be a big thing. It's a big bar there that says shock barrier. Now, the thing that you have to worry about in phase 4, once you've transitioned to phase 4 and things are going well, is you don't want to the phoenixes, when they die, they leave an egg. If you don't kill the egg in about 15 seconds, the phoenix will respawn. Kael will spawn another phoenix, and then you've just got you will quickly die because there are just too many phoenixes running around. So when the phoenix dies, it spawns an egg. You need everybody, and I mean everybody, to run to the egg and DPS it down as fast as possible.
What kind of health is on the egg?
40,000, 50,000. It's a significant amount. Like, you need to have everyone concentrate on it immediately. I should have looked up the totals before I did this. I knew I was forgetting to do something, but making sure that the phoenix eggs and the shock barrier don't line up, that's going to be Harkshare. That's going to be your most stressful thing to do in phase 4. So what we do is, if an egg is going to spawn too near it, we have, like, myself and maybe a couple of the hunters, we just DPS down the phoenix a little early. Egg spawns early, kill the egg, get back to Kael. It's going to be like with a lot of other things I've said, it's going to be a feeling out period where you find out, like, what's the proper time to leave yourself so that you can get back to a shock barrier as soon as possible. with the legendary weapons, it is easier to get through a lot of these tight checks because you're going to be doing pretty good DPS. Like the legendary staff it's pretty powerful. It might mess with some of your hit gems if you have any hit from your weapons, so just keep an eye on that.
I don't think
Um,
any of the locks do, but yeah, it's like 350 spell power as opposed to like Eye of the Abyss weapon, which is like 220 something spell power. So
Yeah.
it's definitely a jump.
Yeah, you'll see some pretty impressive crits. But especially because with the debuffs from the other legendary weapons, you're going to be doing 25% additional damage. So you want to DPS Kael as much as you want to get as much uptime on him while minimizing the amount of time you have to spend DPSing a Phoenix and the Phoenix eggs. So um, DPS Kael as fast as possible. Then it's just goes back and forth. Egg, Kael, shock barrier, Kael, until you get him to 50%. Once he's at 50%, phase 5 starts. Now, phase 5, there's a bit of an intermission where he becomes invulnerable to damage. He like raises up into the air, absorbs power from like the room, like does a megalomaniacal speech, and then phase 5 starts. Now in phase 5, he no longer mind controls people. He no longer does pyroblasts. He still puts up shock barrier, but he doesn't do anything else with it. There are two schools of thought for phase 5. A lot of guilds just zerg him down after this. They ignore. He keeps spawning phoenixes, so a lot of guilds just ignore the phoenixes.
Or
If you
have
put
the pally tank him, maybe?
no, they just ignore them. Like you can put down frost traps, and they're pretty easy to avoid. They just zerg him down from 50% to 0. It's not like if you start getting like if you have really good uptime on him and people aren't having to dodge too many phoenixes, it's really easy to do a lot of damage to him. We've done that sometimes. We've also killed phoenixes and done it like been careful about it. Like our first kill took I think 17 minutes. That's a really long time to be doing a boss fight. So I would say try the Zerg method your first time there. If it doesn't work, you'll have to find the new rhythm of killing phoenixes, getting onto Kael, killing the eggs, getting onto Kael, and just making sure you don't get overrun with phoenixes. Pretty much no matter what, once you hit about 25%, just stay on Kael. The big new mechanic is called that he will do is called grabs. He teleports everyone to like his feet right in front of him, and he throws everyone into the air, and you like just swim around in the air. You need everyone to spread out during this phase because he starts doing a chain lightning. You also need to have, especially your tank, look out for these dark clouds with like purple energy coming off of them, because if they touch those, their HP gets reduced, and you really don't want your main tank to like lose all his HP at this point.
Now
So
is this the phase where you're like actually flying?
yes, that's what gravity lapse is. Like
Okay.
you swim around in the air. You spread out. You want to get pretty close to the ground because gravity lapse only lasts about I think 20 seconds, 25 seconds. Um, if you're up in the air too high, you will take falling damage. So you want to spread out near the ground. Now, what Kael does is he will in this phase just chain put shock barrier on himself, so it's very difficult to do a lot of damage to him. Because your melee is not going to be able to get uptime on him, because the dark clouds are going to be near him usually, and you don't want to die to that. So, during that, that's when we will DPS down any phoenixes or eggs if we see them. That's when we go after them. Once gravity lapse ends, he stops casting shock barrier on himself. Just DPS him down. Just go as hard as you can. It like phase 5 is one of the easier phases as long as you have enough people alive and people can dodge the clouds. Do you have any questions?
I would say on I believe it's phase 4. You can tell me it's phase 4 or 5 when it starts that the boss will come flagging you to use the staff buff on somebody. Is that only on the main tank, or is it?
That's phase 3. Like the conflag is only going to be from Capernian, and yeah, you need to make
Oh,
sure
okay.
everyone possible has the staff buff on them.
Okay, and is that just something that they can cast on themselves, or is that something they cast on somebody else?
No, it's if you use the staff like a trinket, like it gets everyone within like 30 yards.
Oh, okay.
It's an AoE. I should have said this. He does do a like an arcane explosion that can slow people, but if you have the staff buff, it's not an issue. So just make sure everyone has a staff buff on them. Again, there's a weak aura that like tracks if a tank doesn't have it on. Just keep an eye out for that.
Sorry, so is that a group 30-yard buff, or is it anyone in 30 yards?
Raid.
Okay, wow, okay.
And then in phase 4, I've seen it done a couple different ways. How'd you guys find the most success for kiting the phoenixes? Like, did you do it just right behind the raid or to the side?
Considering like where they spawn is completely random, we just like we have our Ellie Shaman frost shock them. That usually actually gets, since that does decent threat, that usually gets good threat on them, and then our paladin tank just starts tanking, like slowly sets up his consecrate so that it's just slowly moving through it, and that gets him threat, and that works just fine.
Okay, so he doesn't really have like a pattern for where he's going. He's kind of just ping ponging from each phoenix that spawns in.
Yeah,
more or less.
he tries to just get it out of the middle of the raid, and
Okay.
no matter what, don't let it run through the tank. That's the big issue. Like, you want to minimize the damage that's going to be on your tank at this point, because Kale does do quite a bit of damage, especially if a fireball gets through. So that's about it. Good lord, I just talked for like 30 minutes.
Yeah, dude, that was great.
Yeah. I was gonna say it is good because a lot of the times watching guides and even VODs isn't normally enough. When you actually get into the fight, you end up finding little things that your guild specifically has issues with, and that you end up working through. And yeah, it's can definitely cost a few wipes doing it that way.
Oh, I completely agree. Like, yeah, this is just my guild, so it's entirely possible that all of this, you guys might have different ways of overcoming this stuff, but that's just that's our best way.
Or we'll just one-shot Kael'Thas, super easy, no worries at all.
I would be so proud of you if you guys did that. You would
Well,
have
I mean,
respect.
I promise there's a 0% chance.
If we did, it would be definitely. It would have been definitely helped by this conversation. This was definitely cool.
Hey, we're here to help. I like to help other people do achieve boss kills. It's fun.
Awesome,
yeah, my job doesn't seem that hard, so I feel confident for tomorrow.
Are you the warrior tank?
I'm the warrior tank.
Yeah, you are pretty much. You get to tank Sanguinar, tank an axe, and then tank Kale. Yours is not the.
I can handle it.
That's not the most strenuous part.
That means I get to yell at other people.
But you do need to, if you follow our strat, yeah, you do need to put the dagger buff on. I hope you have dagger skill, right?
I do, because I have the Vash dagger. So I trained it up.
Oh. Weren't you a warrior in Classic, or were you
Oh yeah, I'm a thoroughbred warrior now, through and through. We're going all the way.
Don't act like you're confident in that.
Yeah.
You're level 1 druid, I think the second week of Classic.
Yeah, it's true. I was like, warrior's worthless, we can't do anything, no.
Oh, I was a warrior for all the Classic.
All right, well, sorry.
I was gonna say, yeah, I had daggers. Like, that was like the weapon I used almost.
Yeah, I was already at 300. Yeah.
Yeah, I just worked up everything one night with Belle healing me while I was watching Netflix in Blasted Lands, and just worked it all up, even unarmed.
I like to imagine Mel doesn't get to watch Netflix. Like, just Bob's watching Netflix while Mel's at the computer healing.
Well, this was great. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Does anybody have any shout outs? Harskar, do you want to shout somebody out?
Shout out to BlazzinBob and his podcast, and yep.
Or maybe your beautiful girl who's been just killing it in DPS.
Yep, fiance as of 1 month ago.
Nice.
Congrats.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And then Naismith, do you have any shout outs to your guild or anything?
Oh no, I talk to those fuckers enough as it is.
Fair. All right, well, we're going to get back to the regular show. Thank you guys for listening in. I hope this helps other people, and we're out.